Your boy Vin in the house. Doing another one of these Ask Me Anything joints. I guess, well, I don't guess. I missed you guys yesterday. I didn't do one yesterday. So this is my mea culpa. I'm doing one with you guys now, if you guys will show up. Some of us are arrogant enough to believe that at 4 o'clock in the morning, there's going to be people out there who are interested in what the hell they have to say. Some of you guys may not be, and that's completely okay. But for those of you who are, we can hang out for a little bit. Let's see what volume is like here on some of these thingamajiggies. There's something I can't hear, so I don't know. Once you guys show up, you'll be able to tell me what volume's like, what you can hear and what you can't hear if I need to adjust something. But yeah, man, we could talk about the end of the world. We could talk about the end of Aaron Rodgers. What's up, Joe Lockwood? Joe Lockwood, you're first. Congratulations for being first. Joe, can you hear me okay? And also, can you hear any background music? So that's 2 questions I had for you, big homie. Can you hear me okay? And can you hear any background music? Because for some reason I cannot hear Nathan. That is, I can't hear anything. So let me know if you can hear anything, Joe. Michael Cooper in the house. What's good, Michael Cooper? Good to see you, buddy. Yep and yep. I can hear you fine, Mick. I can also hear the music. Okay, so for some reason I can't hear the music, but who cares, right? As long as you guys can hear, I think we're good to go. So in the football world, Aaron Rodgers just lost again. So I can't tell you guys how happy I am for that. So we are, Soria and I are going to make a comeback very, very soon. I just am doing this because we weren't scheduled for anything today, but you know, to be honest with you guys, I don't really like a lot of time away from the crew. So, I'm doing this, mostly for me. I mean, yeah, I wanted to hook up with y'all, check up on y'all, make sure you guys are good. MacBook Pro microphone. I don't want the Mac Pro microphone. I'll mute that one. I want to make sure you guys are good, but I also don't like doing, I don't like going a lot of days without hanging with my folks. Y'all know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, shout out to the 49ers. Can't say I'm a big, giant 49ers fan, but I know for a fact that I can't stand Aaron Rodgers and his overrated self. So I was pretty happy. What's up, Kai? Kai in the house, my brother. I was pretty happy to see Aaron Rodgers lose today. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Okay, I think one of those chords or whatever doesn't work. Not gonna lie to you and say that I was heartbroken to see the downfall of Aaron Rodgers, that bad man. Got back from winter formal an hour ago. I got to spend a few hours in a loud, sweaty room with lots of flashing lights. Pretty fun. Good. How are the ladies treating you, brother? I hope they were treating you good. I hope you were treating them good. I know you were respectful, Daniel Montgomery, so inshallah. I know that you were, though. I know that you were. So how you been, man? How's it been going? Hold on. Here we go. All right, there we go. Can you guys hear pretty good contrast-wise with the mic? Because I can only hear the music right now. Although the music is back on. Okay. Rodgers looked very old walking off that field. Yeah, bro. He really did. He looked pretty freaking old walking off that field. it's amazing to think that Brady's got like 6 to 8 years on him or something like that. So, yeah, that was pretty hilarious. Okay, good. What time is it where you are right now, Kai? Vin, will you try DMT? I don't know. I probably shouldn't from a theological perspective, but I'm probably going to anyway. So I'm not sure. I know who will not be trying DMT, and that is Sori. The whole ego death thing and meeting the machine elves and all that is something she's terrified of. And so I don't think she's going to do it. The other thing about DMT is people have actually died on DMT trips, like literally died, not like ego death. They've literally died. So you've got to do it. If you're going to do DMT, you've got to do that with a person who knows what the hell they're doing, because if you don't, it's not the best thing in the world. You got to respect that medicine, man. So, but yeah, I don't know. I will probably at some point venture into a DMT trip at some point. But yeah. This, by the way, what you guys are hearing as the background music actually came from an amateur villager. In my opinion, dude's an absolute badass. I forgot the name of this villager, and I forgot his. Where did we download this from? We downloaded this from not Spotify. What's that other place where all the rappers are getting all their record deals from? It's not Spotify. What's that other? SoundCloud. We downloaded this from this villager's SoundCloud account. He's like, hey, you guys can, download any of my shit that you want, whatever, and play it. So, yeah, this is his. Really good stuff. She doesn't like me back, but it's cool, I guess. Daniel, it's like I told Dorian today. You guys are on a different wavelength, and it's gonna take a while before you guys run into females that are on your wavelength. And what I would just say is, don't compromise who you are and what you are in order to get in with the ladies. It's not worth it. Trust me. Went and saw Tool last night. Holy smokes. That must have been quite the experience, huh? That must have really been quite the experience to see that band live. That's actually one of my bucket list kind of desires in life is to see that band live, because it's just, you guys know about Tool and what they bring to the table and what they do music wise. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Those guys, unbelievable. Interestingly enough, Finns don't have the end of the world myth, or at least I have not heard or read about it. That is interesting. Doesn't everyone kind of have an eschaton thing though, or is it one of those things where the Finns? Are you saying they didn't take time to develop an end of the world eschatology or mythology or whatever, because even secularists had that, right? Like, stars going to heat, death, all that jazz, and then that's all she wrote? Or is it just something where the belief system is set on emphasizing other things, so the end of the world isn't really relevant to them enough to create a mythology or a theology around it? That's really interesting, because I thought everybody had some sort of end of the world concept, even if it's not cast in mythological terms. I figured that everybody sort of had a concept that everything was going to end at some point, or this experience of reality was going to be permanently altered as we know it. Because when people say end of the world, especially in my circles, they don't literally mean like end of the world, we all go to infinite black. Usually what they mean is the end of our experience of this kind of reality is going to be permanently and totally altered to the point where it's going to be unrecognizable from A to B, if that makes any sense. Damn, they didn't play Sober in 46 and 2? See, I can understand why they wouldn't play Sober, just because it was one of their first, like, really, really big hits, and they must have done that song literally thousands of times. And Maynard is for the lack of a better term, a bit eccentric. So I could see him saying, "No, I don't want to play Sober for the millionth time." But damn, that's a gut punch to not hear Sober or 46 and 2. Sober, I think, is actually the first Tool song we ever did on the channel. While we're here, we got to strive for Eros. Yeah, that's interesting. So Eros is one of the Greek forms of love, right? And that's where we get the term erotic from. So are you saying that kind of love, or are you just talking about love in general? The situation with Ukraine and Russia is getting worrying. Yeah, I do think that... I don't know how people are going to take this, but you saw what the Russians did during the Obama administration, and you saw what the Russians did during the Biden administration. I think one of the byproducts of having a guy like Trump in office is he's not somebody that you want to get into a pissing contest with on the global stage. I look, the Biden presidency, it's exactly... Here's the thing about Biden's presidency and his... I don't want to dishonor him, because the Bible says not to dishonor your leaders. You shall not speak evil of a rule of your people. Biden's challenges, foreign and domestic. Is anybody surprised that Biden has these challenges? Or is anybody surprised that Putin there would be an uptick in Russian aggression at the Biden administration? I'm not. The one of the ultimate ironies of the obsession with Russia and all the red baiting that happened during the Trump administration is that, and I pointed this out actually on Middle America, was that there was a case to be made, and it was from a Russian national, and she had a website that basically chronicled, in her mind, U.S. aggression towards Russia, that in her mind experienced an uptick during the Trump administration. And I just think that 2024 can't get here fast enough. I guess Joe Rogan said that Michelle Obama was going to beat Trump in a close race in 2024. I think that that's entirely possible. I just don't know who she would run for her VP. What's up, Vegito? Vegito Blue. Cool name. Cool name. I don't know who she would have as her VP. Oh, well, Stacey Abrams. I think it's Stacey Abrams, maybe. That would pretty much unite the left. But I also think it would unite the right. I don't think, I think Trump's COVID stance puts him at odds with his group. So I just don't know. But obviously, Mr. Biden's going to be a one-term president. And obviously, Miss Kamala Harris, who, again, I called this out at the beginning of the presidency. Mr. Biden has used Miss Harris as a human shield in the media to catch all the bullets that he obviously knows that he cannot dodge. So I have no idea what's going to happen. No idea. Michelle would go with Amy Klobuchar. Probably true. Which metal subgenre do you two prefer? Heavy metal, new metal, death metal? I think black metal is my favorite. The people have told me atmospheric black metal is my favorite. I think Sori's favorite is probably progressive. Although she does like atmospheric stuff too, but she likes progressive. We should have no presidents. Genuinely curious, what would you have in place of presidents? Are you an anarchist? And I don't mean anarchist in a pejorative term. I do think that the anarchism that I've learned from people on the channel sounds very, very intriguing to me, and I'm very intrigued by it. I'm not sure that it could actually work in this generation, but I'm very intrigued by it. Perkinos in the house. What's good, Perk? Perky, baby. I was actually going to text you yesterday and tell you to pray for me, Perk, but I forgot. I forgot to do it. But glad to see you in the house, big man. Perk, are you what's your millennial stance, by the way? Are you pre-mill, post-mill, ah-mill? I just assumed you were ah-mill. We're supposed to have God in place of presidents, but yeah, unfortunately. Democracy is dumb. Just make me the philosopher king. I'll fix everything, I promise. I would vote for you. Ironically, I would vote for you to end democracy, Perk. Holy smokes, you're post-mill. Okay. Were you always post-mill? When did you become post-mill, and what influenced you to become post-mill? Small governments, free markets, and sound money. The founding fathers didn't even like democracy. I didn't know that the founding fathers didn't like democracy, but that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they didn't want women to vote, right? And they certainly didn't want their Negroes to vote. So, yeah, that makes sense that they would be against democracy. I think Senate terms are too long. We have to force people to pick better options. Yeah, although I felt like in the last, at least on the Democratic side, there was a force, right? There was pick Bernie or pick Biden, and folks picked Biden. So, and some of that was just Bernie not being, I don't want to say man enough. That's probably not the word for it, but Bernie not being political enough. That, I think, was the fatal flaw. I think with Trump, he was willing to be as ugly as he needed to be for to win the election, whereas the other one, not so much. And I think that eventually ended up hurting him, I think. So, yeah, I hear you on that one. For sure. Would you name a band? Could you name a band that you like but is unknown to the general public? Type of recommendation. There's this band called The Receiving End of Sirens. I do think they're known to the general public, but I think that they're probably, I don't know what the genre is. I think somebody said that their genre was indie. I'm trying to get these fake glasses on, guys, just to mix it up a little bit. There you go. Receiving End of Sirens. I think they're an indie band. And in my opinion, they're the greatest indie band of all time. They're just one of the best bands of all time. They came out with 2 records and then they quit. And I just think that they're one of the best ever. Best ever. I think I used to just float between Amill and post-mill, but folks like Peter Lightheart, Jim Jordan have influenced me in switching to a more post-mill worldview. Yeah, what from Jim Jordan has influenced you on the post-mill side? Because that's a really interesting. Yeah, Jim Jordan is a space alien, huh? Such an interesting guy. Yeah, man. I'm pretty, I don't want to say nervous, but if Brady pulls out a victory against the Rams, I think it'll be a massive accomplishment. His offensive line is decimated, and he's going up against probably the best defensive line in a very he's ever seen, probably. This gonna be. Look, if he can get the ball out, if they've got Leonard Fournette's back, if we can get the ball out in 2 seconds, who knows? I keep getting booted out. Sorry for that, Margaret. Hope you can stay in now. I'm certainly not booting you out. What do you think of the band The Doors? That's how I got introduced to this channel, from your Doors The End reaction years ago, and I've been watching ever since. By the way, thanks for coming to the channel. That guy as a writer is intriguing to me. I think one of these days, once we get caught up and things of that nature, I want to, do a couple VIN picks and story picks, and the Doors are kind of like really up there for me as a band to listen to. You guys know how important lyrics are to me, and especially that song, The End, was so. I thought about that song for about a week or two after we did the review. He's such a provocative. Yeah, I always felt like reviewing his lyrics, I'm like, man, I always felt like I left a lot on the table, even though the reviews were like 45 minutes. Like, it's one of those things where I felt like I couldn't get around all of what he was saying because he was saying a lot. So I'm very intrigued by him. Comes down to Evans and Gronk. Yeah, I think I'm assuming they're gonna put Ramsey on Mike. We had Rashad Perriman. He was pretty good. We had Cyril, I think Jameson was the guy's last name. He was pretty good. And then those 2 guys are nicked up. I mean, I made the case that the Bucs should fire their athletic trainer, because literally every week somebody and some very important person was getting hurt. And in football, there are techniques per position. Whether you're a wide receiver, running back, whatever, there are techniques to use to avoid injury. And I just, terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I'm a big fan of nu metal. What's your opinion on this very controversial subgenre in the metal universe? I got into metal via nu metal. So, I'm never going to be one of these people that hates on nu metal. I think nu metal was a very, very dynamic form of metal. It made metal very accessible to people who were not familiar with it, like people like me and my friends, in the Bronx, New York. I don't think I would ever gotten into metal were it not for seeing Korn at Woodstock. When I saw Korn, I saw because DMX was set to do a set at Woodstock '99. I was in high school at the time, and I saw 30 seconds of Korn doing "Got the Life," and my jaw just dropped. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I instantly ran upstairs, found the rock station, and instantly became a giant Korn fan, and that's all she wrote. So I'm a big fan of nu metal. The problem with nu metal was that, especially now, owning a few guitars, playing the instrument after a while, it was so, quote, easy to play nu metal that you had 50 nu metal bands popping up every 2 seconds, and it oversaturated the genre. It was only able to last for about 5 years, so you only have Slipknot, Korn, Disturbed that made it out of that era. You know what I'm saying? And that's because they were just so gifted and talented and creative that they're able to make it out of that era. But yeah, I mean, there were 15 bands a day coming out at that point. Why is the U.S. government confirming aliens exist? Do you think we'll have little green men living with us on Earth in a few years? I'm not certain that the U.S. government have confirmed that they existed. What they have said is that the craft are craft that are not from this Earth. Or not from this world. I don't think they use the term Earth. I think they said off-world vehicles that are not of the Earth or something like that. That doesn't necessarily confirm aliens, although logically you could deduce, well, if they didn't originate on the Earth and they're off-world vehicles and they're making 90-degree turns in their turns or whatever, and they're transmedial, meaning they, and they're not from this Earth, that means somebody had to have made that craft. And if that's the case, then you would have to confirm intelligence is outside of our experience. So I guess you could say they ostensibly confirmed aliens. Look, there is a lot of theories. One theory is that, this is China, this is Russia, because these crafts or these mechanisms are around military outposts. There's pretty famous ones that are by nuclear facilities, and obviously the Nimitz and the rest of these are aircraft carriers and things of that nature. So these machines seem to be around military outposts, and so this is China or this is Russia, but we don't want to admit that it's China and Russia, because then that would be us conceding that they've got their hands on technology that are literally hundreds of years beyond us. And if that's the case, what are the implications? Of course, for me, I'm like, well, I don't know, man, because if China had that kind of power, I have a very, very hard time feeling like they would keep that quiet and allow us to say, oh no, that's not. I feel like they would make a demonstration of that, and say, look, hand over the keys, because we're gonna, it's over. We'd all be speaking Mandarin. Another theory is that these craft are actually US, and we're testing them on the best that we have. So like the Tic Tac UFO, which was very, very fascinating to me. Favre, the pilot, who I think he was in an F-15. Him and the other pilot, he was doing this sort of corkscrew thing, and the other one was. This guy he's got hundreds and hundreds of hours in the air and knows his shit, and is from my vantage point completely buttoned up. It appears that this craft took him by surprise. And I watched a documentary on HBO about this, and when that happened, a bunch of guys, the MIB showed up, took the video of the recording of it. So we don't have it; we just have his testimony. And so another theory is that this was a weapons test against the best that we had. Obviously, in order for us to genuinely test it, that means we can't tell them, hey, we're testing this craft, let's see if you can catch it, type of thing. So that's another theory. Another theory is that, look, Favre and the rest of these guys are all part of a giant psyop to distract us from something else. This shit can't be real because we have laws of physics, and if what he's saying is true, these things violate the laws of physics. So I have my opinions. What's up, Zaire? I have my opinions. I'm not exactly sure. I'm probably not articulating myself well currently, but I find the idea that the church is still in its early stages, that Jesus desired to make disciples of all nations with something serious. I agree. As early as Eden, God desired to create a kingdom of priests for man to beautify creation. That seems more compatible with a post-modern worldview that our goal is to heavenize creation. I agree. Or as Sproul used to say, gardenize the earth. I agree. Also, I have been meaning to text you, but keep forgetting to. You told me I should look into Sailhammer. Which book of his would you recommend me look at? I will buy it. It's the Meaning of the Pentateuch, which was his magnum opus, which to me is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Aliens or demons? That's one way to look at it. I'm not certain I agree with that completely, but that's one way to look at it. VIN to God with another insomnicide for all his vampire sleepers. Yes. That's most likely why Area 51 is so well guarded. The development of U.S. aircraft technology. Yes. Probably. If the government was hiding aliens, there's no way they'd be able to keep them in Area 51. Way too obvious. I'm sure they're demons, though. How could you be sure that they're demons? How could you be sure? How could you be sure they're demons? Have you interfaced with... it's a genuine question. How do you know that some of them are not angels? Ezekiel 1 has a pretty interesting description of what most modern people would probably call a spacecraft. And the beings in that craft are not demonic. Elijah gets taken to heaven in a chariot of fire. I'm sure that you don't believe that the occupants of that craft were demonic. So why would you make the leap to say that these beings are demonic? Have you ever watched a documentary about the Anunnaki? Really interesting documentary. Yeah, I mean, I've watched multiple documentaries about the Anunnaki. And Zecharia Sitchin. Although a guy that I highly respect, Michael Heiser, has fundamental disagreements with Zecharia Sitchin. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he had a lot of breakthrough work in studies in regards to the Anunnaki. But yeah, fascinating stuff. Then it's probably like Sammy Peoples' eschatology, and it has something to do with the sky stars, so that stops and starts the cycle of life again. Probably makes sense. The gray ones are definitely demons. But how do you know? I don't understand how you're saying that. Like, And then how can you say that with such definitive? I don't understand that. Like, how can you say that with such definitive confidence that they're definitely demons? I don't know, bro. I don't know. I don't know definitively what they are, and I'm not going to say that it's impossible that people can know definitively what they are. I just want to know what your algorithm is. How did you get to the point where you could say so confidently and with so much finality that these things are demons? Okay, so there's a game day in Eastern Finland. Well, I don't know, guys. You guys can load up the conspiracy theories, but we got cut off, unfortunately. So once we started talking about Zuckerberg and the aliens, all of a sudden the feed cut out on us. So do what you will with that, dear listener. Do what you will with that. You know what's funny? When Sori and I first started the channel, we had this idea of this show called Conspiracy Thursdays, where we were gonna tackle a conspiracy theory every Thursday. But obviously we haven't done that because the channel kind of went in a different direction than we thought it was going to go. We had no idea. You know, I remember we hit like 300 subscribers at one point, and I was like, "Oh my God, sorry, look at this. We have got 300 subscribers." We thought it was the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? So we thought we were going to have all this time. We thought we were going to have all this time to be able to be like, "Yo, we're going to talk about, you know, aliens and all the rest of it and all the other conspiracy theories," but we weren't able to. CIA came up with the term conspiracy theory. Yeah, that's one theory about it. They certainly popularized it so that they could. I mean, the government and everybody does this though. People who want to discount something that is not part of the ultimate meta-narrative or whatever, you could just say, "Oh, they're a conspiracy theorist." I think all of us, you know, in the last, you know, year and a half have been able to say, at some level, your friends who have been saying, "Listen, this particular party line here doesn't work," isn't true. I think now you have to say, you know, at some level, we should be a little bit more circumspect when we just dismiss somebody as a crazy conspiracy theorist. Why didn't the January 6th crowd storm Area 51 instead? Because they would have, you know what's very fascinating about that question? Is that I think most of us probably believe that if they did that, they would have all been mowed down. So what does it tell us about our country that if you storm the Capitol on such an auspicious day, that you pretty much can get out alive if you're a certain demographic, but it doesn't matter who the hell you are, if you storm Area 51, you're going to get put down like a dog? That's a very fascinating question. And whether it's true or not, I don't know, guys. I'm just saying it's a fascinating thing to think through. You and Sori have got the time to check out the book. Want some honest feedback? Yeah, I actually have to keep quiet about what we're going to be doing with the book. But yes. Guys, I'm going away for a week to a detox program. Okay, Danny. That's good. I go through mental health issues. It's part of my drinking issues, so I'm finally getting help for it. It's going to defeat my demons, anxious self. Yeah, man. Yeah, Danny. We've, you know, if you've heard through the channel, we've walked with a couple people in our lives here in the non-virtual world through that stuff. And biggest advice I'd say is be patient with the program. Believe in the program. Believe in yourself. And I don't know whether or not you believe in God, but we'll believe in God for you if you don't. But that's the biggest thing I would say is be patient. There's going to be a lot of, there's going to be doubts and all the rest of it. But a week is a good start. It's better than nothing. And just stay with it. But congratulations to you, bro. That's great. Keep it moving. With all this talk of aliens or demons, doesn't the word demon have... If God had not looked away from Jesus when he was on the cross, do you think Jesus wouldn't have died? Well, it says in, I think it's John, that he gave up his spirit. And so I think that was the crux of the matter. God looking away from Christ, I think it was John Piper had this sermon one time called The Scream of the Damned, where Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me? And so I think I believe that what was happening on the cross is that Jesus was bearing our hell in the most literal way possible. And so God looking away from Christ, which is obviously human terms, God looking away from Christ in that moment, and if you're a divine being, you can experience a single moment for an eternity, is Christ feeling the, that ultimate benediction, may the Lord bless you and keep you, may the Lord cause his face to shine upon you. Like, at the end of the day, that's the goal. The goal is the face of God. So you want the face of God, and you don't want God to turn his face away from you or to turn his back to you or to abandon you. And so living in a dimension where God has turned his back on you and will never turn his face to you is one of the facets that makes hell hellish. And so, I would say that was necessary as a part to atone or pay for our sins so that we would never have to truly say that. Because anybody who says that on this earth isn't really truly saying it. And when I say truly saying it, I'm not saying that they don't feel it, but what I am saying is that nobody on this earth has actually ever experienced being abandoned by God. We have no idea what that's actually like. And so that's part of making atonement for us, I would say. Is it safe to say that you like prog rock a lot more than you like prog metal because you've shown lots of love for prog from the 70s as compared to prog from the 90s and on? That's a good distinction, Black Queen. I think you're probably right. I think there was this band, Yes, a couple, like maybe a week and a half ago, and they were prog, but they were from the 70s, but I absolutely loved what they did. It was like an otherworldly experience, whereas there are other bands in the 90s. I think there are a couple Dream Theater songs that I recognize the guitar divinity, but as far as like liking the song, enjoying the song, I had to admit that I really truly didn't enjoy the song. Alex Hefner. Shout out to Alex Hefner. He mentioned your friendship. How'd you guys meet? What other channel besides Alex do you like? We met because people kept saying, you should react to Alex Hefner. You should, have you heard of Alex Hefner? And people were saying that to him. And so, we met and we did a collab and we text each other every once in a while. And, we were in a room one time, me and Hef. I tell the story once in a while, but I don't say who it was. But me and Hef were in a room one time, and he had a famous dude, pretty big band, and you could tell. I mean, they were good friends, and I was setting up a chat tool for him, and because I have it, because I was And I gave him my password and all this jazz so he could use the tool. I don't know if he uses it anymore, but the three of us are in the room, and dude is like, man, if people could see this room right now, people would be like losing their shit because I was there and then Hef was there and this other band guy was there. I thought it was pretty funny, but dude was like really unassuming, nice guy. You guys know I'm very, very ignorant of metal, so I didn't even know who he was until later. He hit me up. He's like, "Yo, that was yada yada yada." I was like, "Holy shit!" Like that. Yeah, that would have been pretty crazy. So yeah, shout out to Alex Hefner. We are so busy right now. I just got done. I sent my son Dorian to bed at like 3:00 because we were talking strategy because he's standing up a small business himself. And he's putting in a lot of hours, and he's asking me for strategy. When we're not doing VIN and Story, we're on other stuff, and we've got a launch that's about to happen in about 6 to 8 weeks, which I'm pretty excited about. We're on the home stretch about. If we can get a couple of these Amazon approvals out of the way, you guys will be obviously the first to hear about it. So we don't get a lot of chance to talk to watch YouTube reactors or whatnot. And if I do listen to something like I'm reading a pretty gigantic book right now, in audiobook form. I mean, it's 9 parts at 8 hours a pop. Okay, put it that way. But I'm thoroughly enjoying the book. I'll probably do an extended review of it. So all that to say, I don't get a chance to listen or look at a lot of Pink Metalhead. When we were smaller and had a lot more time, I would watch her stuff. I think she's cool. Obviously, Blake X, Nuclear Reactions, he's great. So yeah. How's Sori's dad doing? He's doing so much better. He was actually out working a couple days ago. So I got to admit, man, I was pretty certain that he was going to be in a lot of trouble. So it was pretty touchy for a while there. I'm not going to lie. Have you seen the Patriot Front leaks? They certainly do not make Patriot Front look good. No, I haven't seen Patriot Front leaks. Send me an email. I would say that we make our own hell in our minds. I'm not necessarily certain that you're wrong, Zer. Romans 1 kind of speaks to that when God is really angry at a person, he doesn't rain down fire and brimstone to them. The constant phrase is that God gave them over to a darkened mind, etc., etc. So I'm not sure that you're completely wrong there. Pink Floyd, ELP, Genesis, etc., classic prog rock bands from the 70s have all had positive reviews from you. I think you're 100% right. For sure. If you like Yes, you need to react to their 18-minute epic Close to the Edge. It's one of my all-time favorite songs. I'm sure it'll come up at some point, for sure. My original question was someone mentioning aliens or demons. Doesn't the word demon have different meaning and origins? It doesn't necessarily mean they're evil beings. Yeah, I was actually listening to a talk from Bernardo Kastrup on YouTube entitled The Diamond Knows, and it's Diemon. A diamond in Kastrup's mind. No, it's not D-I-E. It's Daemon. And it's pronounced diamond. In Kastrup's mind, the diamond appears to be a semi-lucid force of nature that appears to have its own separate ontology and can be reasoned with and negotiated with. So it's a voice or an impulse to tell you to do X, Y, Z, and you can, and he says you should negotiate with it, because in Kastrup's mind, the diamond is simply nature. It doesn't have any moral considerations. And so if you completely sell yourself out to the diamond, you're going to end up doing, in his mind, immoral shit. So, for example, Hitler, he says, was a complete slave to his diamond. And he says Hitler was wrong for that. He completely gave himself over to his diamond, and he was wrong for that because a diamond's only a force of nature. And Kastrup says that Hitler should have had his negotiated with his diamond from his moral self, which is very, very fascinating. But at least in that context, diamond doesn't necessarily mean demon. And I've always defined demons on the channel as dark intelligences. So Kastrup is not a Christian, so whatever. He also said that Gandhi was fully devoted to his diamond, which, of course, I don't think anybody would say that Gandhi should have negotiated with his diamond as far as being such a good person. See what I'm saying? So, very, very interesting stuff. Is using Amazon the only viable option for setting up a small business such as Dorian's? I understand why it's a go-to, but ethically. Well, Dorian's particular business is not an Amazon business. It's more on the real estate side. Fighting Amazon is something that I think is going to have to be done on the legislative side. In the same way that, look, you guys know how I feel about trafficking and sex trafficked individuals and things like that in certain aspects of the internet. But we can legislate the hell out of the dark web. We can't. Our culture is so dependent on the internet that it is impossible to not patronize the internet. And I fear that Amazon is so big at this point where ethically it would almost be injurious to destroy Amazon and almost unethical to destroy Amazon. We've got to come up with government structures that attack Amazon. And the real issue is how unfettered capitalism functions in a capitalist society. I think the only reason we're seeing it now with Amazon is because of social media and the fact that now it's happening to Americans. But we've all been patronizing, well, most of us have, products and services that originate in sweatshops. And it's almost impossible to function in this society without that, because we all know that capitalism needs a form of slave labor to exist. So I think the real larger issue is, let's say we had a giant jihad against, I'm currently reading a book that's dealing with these tensions. You know, where AOC effectively got rid of an Amazon. I think it was Amazon. Amazon was about to set up shop in New York City, and she triumphalistically got rid of it, but cost, I don't know, like 2,000 jobs or something like that. And so there is this sort of push-pull between capitalism, humanism, being an ethical person, Marxism, the value of the worker, and all the rest of it. And obviously, in order for Marxism to work, you have to have workers. So for AOC to blockade Amazon in New York for those periods of times, I'm not even certain is something to be celebrated from a Marxist vantage point. Whereas I would say to myself, well, no, bring Amazon there and then regulate the hell out of them in New York. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not certain how to attack a group like Amazon, and it's something I think about a lot. The other problem that I have is that I'm in a group, and there's a certain monetary gateway to entry into this particular group, but I'm seeing single moms who are doing very, very well for themselves because of Amazon. So that's the other problem that I have, is that, and I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of them doing extremely well, who would otherwise be extremely vulnerable and be taken advantage of. And so that's the other side of it, is that Amazon's business model is such that it's creating millionaires at the clip of I think it's like 2.1 parts per million or some shit like that. So there's a lot of moving parts when I think about Amazon, right? I mean, our product can be sold on Shopify. The other thing that's really interesting, so our product, we've got it on Shopify and eBay, and it's a consumable product. The company that has the most strict standards is Amazon. So, in other words, we could be selling poison. We're not, obviously. We test drove all of our products here at home with our folks. But we literally could be selling poison and killing people. And Shopify basically says, hey, that's not our fault. It's the fault of the seller. But Amazon, because they're so big and because they're so concerned about not getting bad publicity, you literally have to jump through. It's one of the reasons why we haven't completely launched the product yet. You literally have to jump through global hoops in order to get it approved to be sold on Amazon. So that's something to be thought of too, because when you think about the morality of things, I looked at my wife. I'm like, yo, sorry, people must have literally died buying shit off of Shopify. You would be amazed. You would think that you'd have to go through some FDA gateway of entry, and you don't. We literally put it up there, and that was it. We put a sample post up there on Amazon. They immediately took it down, and their global food, whatever, came to us, and they assigned somebody to us, and that was 3 months ago. And we're still in the process right now of getting a basic approval. So that's the other side of the morality question for me. And our specific thing is, again, a consumable thing. And a lot of moving parts to that discussion. And I honestly, I have no idea at all. How can you change laws to regulate something like Amazon when they buy politicians and essentially write their own rules in a roundabout way? Well, again, that's not just Amazon. That's Apple. Apple has used labor from incarcerated individuals. They've also taken advantage of the 13th Amendment. Every major corporation, no matter how green they are, how progressive they sound on Twitter, is taking advantage of slave labor to some degree or another. And so, look, Apple thrived. All these people thrived under the Trump administration. So I understand that Amazon is the biggest dog in the kennel at this point, and so people are saying X, Y, and Z thing about Amazon. But I'm talking to you on an Apple product. So, and again, this has been going on since the inception of capitalism. The most I could say is, look, we got child labor laws passed, and these industrialists at the beginning, these people were murderers. They would kill. These guys were almost indistinguishable from the mafia, and justice prevailed. Same thing with the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade. We have to make a point to talk about the transatlantic slave trade because we know that slavery is continuously happening, just in a more insidious form. So I truly believe we can do it, but we've got to have some extreme. The thing about Bezos is, and the rest of these guys, Gates, all of them, they're extremely intelligent. Elon Musk, extremely intelligent, and they're extremely dedicated to their craft. And we need Marxist alternatives of very intelligent people who can build narratives very well and come up with very practical, real legislative solutions to these problems. Otherwise, there's no real hope. Jimmy Dore claims progressivism while supporting GOP tactics. I don't know about that. Jimmy Dore is an absolute lunatic, and Sam Seder has taken him down multiple times. Well, Sam Seder is a great debater, but being a great debater myself, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're right. So, I don't know. But it's a very good question. Great way to start a Sunday. Well, great way to start a Sunday to see you as well, Ann. For sure, for sure, for sure. Have you ever tried any psychedelics, and do you think God put them there for humans to see themselves in the world in a different perspective? Mark, I've got a really crazy theory that whatever happened in the Garden of Eden, that it was some form of a psychedelic that either turbo boosted our evolution or at minimum altered our DNA physically in a real tangible way. So whatever that fruit was of the knowledge of good and evil, I think that's what we ingested. I don't. The way my current understanding of psychedelics is that it is a shortcut to, and I'm saying shortcut in the negative sense, to divine meditation. I think these esoteric, otherworldly experiences could probably be attained to if we meditated on God enough. Whereas psychedelics give you sort of a shortcut where you don't have to do that kind of work. And I think as such, it puts you into an arena where you're probably in some form of spiritual jeopardy, which is one of the reasons why I'm not completely recommending it. Amazon basically exists to eat small businesses. I don't think you can stop Amazon from doing that via capitalism since they have enough capital to take losses for years without budging. I agree with that. Rather interestingly, ancient Romans had the belief that everyone had a patron deity, even called a daimon, but that the emperor had the most important one, which was to be worshipped. There you go. Email sent. Okay, thanks. They didn't have renamed Greek gods. Roman mythology just developed similarly, and it was easy to apply stories about Zeus to Jupiter. A letdown is a letdown, Ben. Where are the bills passed? Well, I'm assuming you're talking about AOC. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of AOC. My thing about AOC is, what in the world could she have done? In my opinion, the real letdown is Bernie. Bernie was saying that Biden was his friend, that Biden was a good guy. Biden was not a good guy. And whether or not Biden was his friend is completely irrelevant and impertinent to what progressives were trying to accomplish. And I would just... Look, I'm certain that Bernie Sanders is one of the main sources of inspiration for AOC. And when your leader does something... I don't know if you guys remember this, but toward the end of Bernie's campaign, AOC split from him. She got off the campaign trail and she split from him. And I think that was... They probably had a couple back office conversations where Bernie said, you know, if I lose, if I go down, I'm not going to do the Trump thing. Because remember, Trump was like, no, if you guys take this from me, I'm burning down the Republican Party. And I think that Bernie said, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to support Biden. And I think she just... That was the end of it. So, in my opinion, AOC, you know, and I've said this to Jimmy Dore directly and whatever, but AOC is in the wilderness by herself. Bernie Sanders, I mean, the fact of the matter is he's now a millionaire after the 2016 elections. He's done very well since then. And I just think that he didn't have the energy to fight anymore. And he conceded the election to Biden, and he should have fought like mad, and he should have blackmailed the Democratic Party, and he completely conceded. He did exactly what he did for Hillary almost. And he abandoned the entire progressive movement, and now, in a similar way to Condoleezza Rice, Kamala Harris, who's now taking all the bullets that Joe Biden deserves to take. AOC is now left taking the bullets that really, in reality, Bernie Sanders should take. Because I don't know what she's supposed to do by herself. I truly have no idea what people expect of her. You could stop working for Amazon if they have no workers. They have nothing to offer. If workers are willing to go on strike, that would be a good start. Only people that don't have children or other dependents can make such simplistic statements. But when you've got people to feed, and when you've got kids that are depending on you, it's not that easy. Vin, through the eyes of the hypostatic union, what do you think happened to Jesus' eternal consciousness and deified mind when he became a child? I have no idea. I have no clue. The issue is we have to change the status quo, but the status quo has bought into an anti-Marx rhetoric. The Red Scare really did a number on the workers' ability to function in a practical sense. Well, the Red Scare did, but I think the dollar scare has done more than the Red Scare. I don't think your modern worker knows anything about the Red Scare or Marx. What they know about is rising inflation, school loan debt, medical debt. You know, I just talked about we're launching this, whatever company, and when you're doing those things, you have business loans and things of that nature, and you've got to have completely pristine credit, obviously, when you're talking about borrowing tens of thousands of dollars. And so, I've talked to you guys. There was 1 week where Sori hit me up. She's like, yeah, there's this $5,000 bill, $5,000 hospital. I'm like, shit, $5,000 hospital bill. I'm like, pay that. She just paid off. Literally 3 days later, she comes to me. Yeah, there's this $12,000 hospital. I'm like, what the fuck? Where did this come? So, we're looking at it. We're looking into it. I'm like, oh, it's just paid off. Sorry, just pay the whole thing. There was 1 week, guys, gang, no bullshit. We paid off like $23K in the span of 6 or 7 days. So Ben, when like I said, I'm always doing 3 or 4 different lines of businesses or work. Whether, at the time I still had a corporate job and I was doing YouTube, and then we were standing up another one of our businesses. So we were able to literally pay it off immediately. But your average American, they hear those numbers, they go into a panic. Then they take these deals with these companies, but then your credit takes a hit, and then if you go to borrow money or you go for a mortgage, then you get these crazy interest rates. So your student loan debt, the hospital stuff, Medicare for all. I believe that there are elements of this country that it basically functions like a domestic sanction. It's basically a form of economic warfare to the point where you get people so over the nose with debt that they're terrified of going under. And so they sell themselves into self-slavery in order to get out of the stress of that psychological warfare. And they don't have the mental energy to organize and do what you're talking about, Ben. I think that's what's happening. I don't think you need to read Das Kapital. I think, what needs to happen is we need to have some economic relief so that people have the mental and physical energy to resist. Because right now, we're dealing with a lot of broken people. And I can understand economically why they would be broken. So a lot of these money issues would be fixed with better wages for the average worker. The reason the workers have no bargaining power is because of the anti-union propaganda and the Red Scare. Yeah. Like I said, I've already articulated other issues that I think are there. I don't think a union is going to help you with $23,000 of... The average American, according to Forbes, dies with $65,000 of debt. And as the scripture says, the borrower is a slave to the lender. So So Ben, I think, look, wages have gone up. People are now paying $15 an hour now post-pandemic, trying to get people back to work. But all the capitalists have done is they've raised the cost of living up on everybody. So now people are getting, their $15 an hour, and then they go to the store and everything costs 15 to 20% more than it did before. So these folks are playing a game that is not going to be solved by one or two labor unions. That's the plan in taxing and holding people. So unplug yourself and just think and act accordingly without fear. Living is being leveraged against people. Oh, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. But again, I am blessed to be able to work multiple jobs at the same time. I never went to college, so I don't have any student loan debt. The medical bills that we incurred only happened recently. And so I had the mental energy to take on multiple lines of business and multiple streams of income. So when we did get slammed, we were able to take care of that, almost immediately. But it's a hellscape out here. And if you have a couple kids and you got people who are depending on you, just saying, "Oh, well, we'll just walk out." We'll walk, especially guys in an at-will state. So Maine is an at-will state, meaning the employer can fire you for any reason at any point in time. These guys are holding all the cards, man, and they've invested multiple billions of dollars in keeping the system the way exactly that it is, and Bernie Sanders really, truly betrayed us. He really, really did. The movement is in complete and total disarray because he didn't have the intestinal fortitude to see the thing through. That's just a fact. Nobody wants to say it because he's so lovable, but he really, really screwed us. He really did. When I say capitalism is killing people, I get side-eyed almost by everybody. It's considered sketchy to go against the system. That's true. I mean, Ben, you were one of the people that really opened my eyes to the violent aspects of capitalism. Some aspects of capitalism are violent. I mean that's things I've said it. And look, I don't believe that Marxism is the ultimate solution either. Because I don't think that Marx takes into account the sinful nature of human beings. What I do think is that a lot of Marx's criticisms about capitalism have been spot on, and I think Marx has accurately diagnosed how the sinful nature interfaces with capitalism. But I think Lenin, Stalin, etc. gives us a template as to how the sinful nature functions within Marxism. And so I don't believe that Marxism is the ultimate solution either. People talk about a mixed economy. I'm not sure necessarily about a mixed economy. I just think that capitalists are so aggressive because it's a very masculine economic system. Very rugged, very individualistic, and aggression and crushing your opponents are virtues in that system. And so if you have a mixed system, capitalists are going to find a way to dominate it. And so that's my problem, is that we don't have a lot of very sophisticated thinkers who can give us an alternative with capitalism that still encourages free trade and ingenuity and entrepreneurship without the ugliness. That's, right now people are cursing the darkness, which has been happening since Marx and before, but there's not really much lighting the candle as far as an alternate reality. Because I will tell you, going to full-on Marxism also doesn't work for me, because we're burning the midnight oil here. We're investing literal tens of thousands of dollars. We're taking insane risks with our livelihood and the future of our children. We're betting on ourselves, and we've got faith in God, but we're taking insane risk. So ultimate Marxism doesn't really work for me either, because nobody who will be working for us at some point in the future, and to be honest with you, we've had these negotiations with our oldest. Like, I'm not sure that I want us to be big enough to where we would be incorporated and hire anybody outside of our family in the first place, because of Marxist principles, actually. But because I don't have a problem with giving my company or means of production, whatever, to my kids, because that's the reason we're taking all these financial risks in the first place. But I'll be damned if somebody from the outside who hasn't put in the 16, 17-hour days for weeks on end, hasn't seen their family for multiple weeks on end, hasn't taken anything near the financial risks that we've taken, I'll be damned if I let them take over our company. Like, that's not going to happen, and I don't think that that's moral either. So we need somebody to come up with some sort of alternative here. But I'm not saying that Bernie had the alternative, but relieving student loan debt and giving us Medicare for all would have gotten us a lot closer, I think. VIN, the situation here in Serbia ain't so much better either. I earn about $500 a month. Everyone thinks that it's enough, but I struggle to get through the month and I live alone. Right. I agree. Do you think our country could survive if we're stuck with either Biden and Trump until 2028? Yeah, I do think we can survive, because human beings are very resilient. And I will say this also, Americans are as well. By the way, shout out to Jack Bauer. Shout out to the homie. I believe Americans are particularly resilient people. Obviously, I'm going to say that as America. So we're going to survive. We survived 9/11. We're going to survive. We just got to figure it out. We got to think hard, and we got to figure it out. The tribalism is murdering us. The media is killing us because it's keeping us apart from each other. But yeah, I think we're going to survive, and we're going to figure it out for sure. I think we're gonna make it for sure. Human beings are resilient, which is actually bad for capitalism. A starving person has no moral qualms with theft to survive. Yeah, I think unfettered capitalism eventually leads to violence, and I think unfettered Marxism also eventually leads to violence. One of the things that I'm actually hopeful about, a lot of people are pessimistic about this, but I think one of the things that makes me hopeful actually is the metaverse. Because I feel like the metaverse can create a forum wherein people's passions can be monetized in a less slavish way. The advent of things like cryptocurrency and meta property and things like that. I understand that there are negative aspects to the possibilities. There are negative possibilities to the metaverse, but I also think that the metaverse can open up financial possibilities for the little guy without the middleman. That I'll be very, very interested to see. Once we start hearing these legislators talk about legislating cryptocurrency, that's where shit is going to get real. So part of this, I think, part of the economic problems that we have, I think technology can help with that. So, for example, virtual technology has aided in, like, let me give you guys an example as far as the violence of capitalism. I live in Maine, and Maine has these seasons where the roads are very icy and horrible and all the rest of it. And every year you see somebody dies in some horrific car accident because show up to work, it doesn't matter. And so now, because people are able to work virtually, you can still supply the demands of labor without putting people in fear, in danger of their lives. And then if you do have a job that still demands that you go on site, you're much more able to get from A to B because there's less cars on the road, because a lot more people here are working virtually, right? So that's one example where technology, to a degree, solves some of the detriments of capitalism. Another example would be in certain industries where people work close to each other, because of sick leave and things like that, where in America people are encouraged to come to work sick and infect their fellow workers. Actually, now, because there's a virtual option, people who are sick can still work, earn some sort of revenue, and then take half time and go in and out without completely infecting their coworkers, and thereby literally killing us. I mean, there's probably tens of thousands of people that have been killed in this pandemic because capitalism encourages people to show up to work when they're sick. So that's, again, another example where technology can sort of blunt the serrated edge of capitalistic violence. So I think the metaverse is something where I think I'm kind of hopeful that there are technologies and ways of looking at money and capital and things of that nature that will be rethought and reoriented in the metaverse that may aid in giving us some relief, inshallah. Cash money won't exist in 10 years. Yeah, I heard that 10 years ago. I heard it 10 years before that. I used to listen to a lot of right-wing radio and all those commercials about buy gold and all the rest of it. And like I said, I think it's important to buy gold and things of that nature, but I've heard that a million times. Do you believe the Bible is 100% true? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, I believe the Bible is 100% true. Most folks only care about cryptocurrency as a vehicle for speculation. It's otherwise far more volatile than fiat currency. I don't see the appeal. I think the fact that there's no middleman is the appeal for crypto. I don't know, or I don't think it's at the point yet to where it can truly compete with fiat currency. But if someone with enough ingenuity figures it out, then we'll be in good shape. Who is your least favorite mainstream newscaster? No comment. No comment. Fiat is real currency. Anyone that says that fiat isn't real currency thinks that no modern developed country has a currency. Right-wingers have little... Anyway. There's old Ben. Alright, guys. 5 minutes. Vin, would you read Havana, a book about the wisdom of Odin to humans? Yes, I would, actually. I'd like to hear what the big homie Odin has to say to humans. I'm not particularly certain what where Odin stands in Viking religion. Is he the creator? Like he's the ultimate creator, or what? What is he exactly? What we all need to do is give more of our money to the Lord and wrap that faith seed with the faith of expectation so we can all be rich. That's heresy. Which your laugh emojis tell me that you know that that's heresy. What an evil set of people those people are. You know, in capitalism, you know, this is capitalism interfacing with religion. And I can't imagine anything uglier. He's associated with war metal. He's associated with warfare and magic. Okay, who's the creator? Isn't he the All-Father? Who's the All-Father in Viking religion? Odin is a trickster god like Loki. During the Viking era, he was the highest god. How far are we from the number of the beast? Peter, I don't believe that the number of the beast is something that's future. I believe the number of the beast was code for Caesar Nero. I believe that Nero was the beast of Revelation. I love good new metal. Bad new metal is awful. I agree. I think there are good forms of music in pretty much every genre. Small article about the Patriot Front. Crypto seems vulnerable to federal regulation, control, and extinction. The Federal Reserve's forthcoming crypto might be declared to be the only currency. Yeah, see, that's my problem, is that if the federal government came in to really try to regulate crypto, I would say, okay, that means they're afraid. That means that those people are afraid of the liberty that crypto is going to do, because it appears that you're going to have a very hard time taxing crypto and things like that. So, I'm not. That makes me that would encourage me if they did that, because you're never going to be able to completely banish something like that in total. Odin was called the All-Father, but the word was created from the death of Ymir, The world was created from the death of Ymir, a primordial giant. Okay. My oldest sister studied Norse mythology a few months ago. She graduated college. Odin actually means the mad one, but he was also called Havi Wiki, which means the high one. Yeah, I know he meant the mark of the beast. But again, I believe that the mark of the beast was worshiping the emperor. I believe the beast in Revelation is Nero. The notion that the vaccine is the mark of the beast drives people to the edge of sanity. I don't believe that shit. Yeah, the mark of the beast is an act of worship. You see clearly in Revelation, I think 14. They have no rest day or night, those who take the mark of the beast and worship his image. So, the mark of the beast and worshiping the image of the emperor they go hand in hand. Is that Mortal Kombat music in the background? No, it's not. The whole world didn't bow to Nero, LOL. Well, my brother, the term whole world is used in a multitude of different ways in the New Testament. For example, the Greeks came to see Jesus, and then the Pharisees said, "See, we're getting nowhere. Look, the whole world has gone after him." Does that mean that every man, woman, child, boy and girl and baby went after Jesus? No. But in the Jewish mind, not only are Jews going after Jesus, but now Greeks are going after Jesus, which in their mind encompasses all of humanity. So I don't think that we need to take that in the sense that you're taking it. Here you are, John 12:19. The Pharisees said to one another, "You see that you're gaining nothing. Look, the world has gone after him." And that is in response, my brother, to the Greeks who wanted to see Jesus. Loki is also a mother of Odin's 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Shout out to Outlaw Torn. So I think that Caesar Nero is the beast. That's what I think. And you know, it's interesting. Everybody talks about the mark of the beast. Nobody's talking about the image of the beast. You know, you had all these little images that you had to burn incense and all the rest of it. Remember, a mark in the ancient world oftentimes was a mark of slavery. It signaled to people who owned you. That's why prior to the mark of the beast, you actually see the mark of the lamb. That people actually have they're marked by the lamb. The righteous are marked with the mark of the lamb in the book of Revelation. That's another kind of mark that nobody talks about. Well, how are people marked with the lamb? Very simple. Because you are owned by the lamb. You belong to the lamb. You're his servants. You're his slaves. And you worship him. And those who are marked with the mark of the beast are Caesar's servants and his slaves. And you see in the in the book of Revelation, there's a war of opposing ideas. You have the dragon versus God the Father. You have the people on earth versus the people of the heaven. You have the whore versus the bride. You have the beast versus the lamb. And I would say that the beast is Caesar Nero, who is making a claim that he's the king of all the world. And then you have Christ, the Lamb, who also makes a claim right at the beginning of Revelation that he's the ruler of the kings on earth. And so there's a battle, and by the end of Revelation, you see who wins. Who wins between the whore and the bride? Who wins between God the Father and the dragon? Who wins between those in heaven and versus those on earth? Who wins between the beast and the lamb? So that's how I'd answer that question. Guess Jesus won't be back, folks. People just aren't accepting sound scripture, I feel. Well, Outlaw, that's not an answer to that question, right? Jesus will be back. The issue is the idea that the Christian church is going to fail so miserably in spreading the gospel to all the nations and bringing them to the obedience of Christ, as Paul says in Romans chapter 1, such that one guy in one epoch of time will be able to accomplish something that Christ himself hasn't been able to accomplish in 2,000 years. To me, is an insult to the power of Christ and the gospel. I would never attribute to Satan more power in 7 years than what God can do in 2,000. I think that we need to rethink that theology because, in my opinion, it's a horrible one. He was supposed to be back after the tribulation, which you believe happened in 70 AD, correct? No, I don't believe that that's correct. The disciples never asked Jesus when he was coming back because they never thought he was going to leave. When they say, "What are the signs of your coming?" that's in direct response to Jesus saying that not one stone would be left on top of the temple in the temple complex. And so when they say, "What will be the sign of your coming?" they could not have meant second coming. Because even after Jesus' resurrection, Peter said, are you now going to restore the kingdoms to Israel? They had no idea that he was coming back, because they had no idea that he was leaving. When they said, what is the sign of your coming? What they meant was, when are you coming in judgment? When are you going to execute this judgment against the temple? And so he did come in 70 AD, and I believe he came visibly. I've shared this this passage many times in Josephus's thingamajiggy here, and I'll share it again. This happened in 65 AD, and it says the following. Besides these, a few days after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, on the 21st day of the day of Artemisius, a certain prodigious and incredible phenomenon appeared. I suppose the account of it would have seemed to be a fable were it not related by those that saw it. And were not the events that followed it, the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. By the way, this is to my knowledge, a secular site that's posting this. Of so considerable a nation as to deserve such signal. For before the sun setting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about among the clouds and surrounding the cities. So, in 65, people looked up and they saw warriors in the sky, and I believe that Jesus is the captain of the Lord's host. And unbelieving Jews are not going to say, we saw the Lord's host and Jesus, who's the captain of the Lord's host, we saw him in the sky. But they did. They did see him in the sky. And 3.5 years later, after they saw that prodigious event, Jerusalem was destroyed. And Jesus had 3.5 years of ministry. And then 3.5 years after they saw that in the sky, Jerusalem was destroyed. So he did return. He did come in the clouds, and every eye did see him in the land. And that's been recorded by Josephus as well as by Tacitus. So do what you will with that. I mean, that's historical fact. So they did see him. You know Psalm 90:10, right? Time is running out. No, I don't believe that time is running out. I believe that we're behind schedule. And I think bad eschatology is one of the main reasons that we're behind schedule. I think you should be excited that Jesus showed up and that secular and non-believing Jews had to admit that the events surrounding AD were singular in human history, and that there were prodigious and biblical signs in the heavens as the Lord Jesus predicted. That should excite you. Preterism is literally the only view that doesn't make Jesus look like a liar when he says, some standing here will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I completely agree. I completely agree. I think preterism is, it's to me, it's one of the most exciting discoveries I've ever made as a Christian. Well, I believe in the rapture. You don't. I'm excited for that. Okay. That's not really a response to the evidence that I showed you, right? That's just you doubling down and saying you believe in something that you were taught, and not really interfacing with the scripture or the historical evidence, which is fine. That's your prerogative. What are your thoughts on people who say that time on earth is just purgatory and we reincarnate until we finish God's plan for us? Well, the scripture says it's appointed a man once to die, and after this, the judgment. I don't think that any lesson that we need to learn needs to be learned in multiple lives or multiple iterations of this simulation. Because after all, God's a pretty good teacher, and it's not that we would have a do-over, it would be that he would be having a do-over, right? So I don't look at it as I need to live multiple lives because I need to learn a lesson. I look at it as if I needed to live multiple lives, God would be a horrible teacher. I would say, look, man, you had, whatever, 33, 63, 83, 93 years to teach me the lesson, and you still couldn't figure it out in one lifetime. It's a pretty terrible teacher. I think God's a pretty good teacher. My understanding is that this world is a simulation, and that the point of this simulation is to experience and have our intentions revealed to ourselves, and to learn why we are where we are in the real world, in the next world, and to learn what kind of people we ought or ought not to be in the next world. So if you end up in a dimension that's completely and totally godless, you will know why based on how you function in the simulation. In the simulation, you didn't want any parts of God in the simulated world, so when you get into the real world, you'll know why you were there. And then the opposite goes on the opposite case. Have you ever witnessed a miracle as a Christian? God healed me once. The experience was very powerful and strengthened my faith. Yes, I've witnessed, I don't want to say a bunch, but I've witnessed some pretty significant supernatural moments. Yeah, one of these days I'll talk about one personally, but I'm not ready to do so right now. Late stream. What's up, Jay? VIN, if you think a woman doesn't have the right to terminate a pregnancy, thus trapping her financially, do you feel a man should also be financially bound at conception even if they are in a couple? Well, a man is. If the DNA comes back and that man is a father, then he is bound financially. And Ben, you're one of the most explicit speakers in the world. The only time you start getting flowery with language is when it comes to this question. Ben, why do you say terminate a pregnancy? Childbirth terminates a pregnancy. Ben, why don't you say what is actually happening? So let me rephrase it for you, Ben. Okay, because I'm very shocked. Not shocked, but it is a little curious to me why you start using the propagandist language of Planned Parenthood instead of saying what things are, when you usually just come out and say things in the rawest sense possible. Then if you think a woman doesn't have the right to kill her child, thus trapping her financially, do you feel a man should also be financially bound at conception even if they aren't a couple? Yeah, so now that I've rephrased your question, the answer is yes, Ben, I do. And we have laws as such. They're called child support laws. That's why Tristan Thompson tried to tell that girl that he'd pay her $75,000 to kill his child while she was still carrying that child, because he didn't want to have to pay child support. He didn't want to have to pay child support for the rest of until that child was 18. And no, they weren't a couple. It was basically a groupie situation. True, you got me. I am pro-death. I know you're pro-death, but don't start flowering up the language now, just because we're talking about babies. Go all the way, Ben. I really need to go back to making vocal covers. Have to work on my gutturals. Yeah, like one of the first people that we ran into when we first started the channel was a guy who had basically like a Slipknot like cover channel. It's pretty interesting. If the Tower of Babel caused a divine intervention, how much more will scientific advancements in AI, genetics, etc. motivate an even greater intervention? That's a very good point. I just don't know if we would recognize it as divine intervention, because I don't think the people in Genesis 11 recognized it as divine intervention. So I think you're right. And the other thing is, I think it's probably already happened, right? Forms of divine intervention to stave off our madness. So yeah, for sure. You mostly do. I think if a man wants nothing to do with a child, that should include finances. If that's bone donor wanted the baby dead in the womb, he should not be expected to keep it alive out of the womb. Well, that's consistent. That would be consistent. That would be a consistent pro-death ethic. Thank God that our country hasn't been degraded to the point where we've even lost that. Abandoning your child in such a way is probably the epitome of unmanliness. So no, he shouldn't be able to do that. Somewhat true. I think Christians have historically viewed Jesus as representing both the divine masculine and feminine. He's associated with the masculine logos and the feminine Sophia. Yeah. Although the Holy Spirit in the intertestamental literature, well, obviously Proverbs 8, right? Proverbs 8, you would have Christ in the divine feminine in that sense. But I also think there's some really interesting intertestamental stuff that would have the Holy Spirit in the divine feminine role, which, to be honest with you, here's one of these days I'm gonna do a stream called Vin's Heresies. To be honest with you, I'm a bit disappointed that there isn't more literature and canonized scripture about using the Holy Spirit as a divine feminine, as a sort of completion to the Holy Family and the Trinity, as it were. That would be so awesome, I think. But I do think, because of Ashtaroth and all this, and the syncretism that happened where you have Israelites trying to marry Ashtaroth to Yahweh and all the rest of it, a divine feminine at that level was probably not wise to inscripturate. So I get it, but at least from a New Testament perspective, that would have been badass. But yet aborted babies used in vaccine experimentation is legitimate because it's for the greater good and is happening anyway, so do we just go along with it? Well, again, why people start using Latin when it comes to talking about babies in the womb, I'll never understand. Notice Clyde speaks English in every single word that he uses here except for fetus. A fetus is an unborn baby post 8 weeks gestation. That's what a fetus is. Now, I think it's nightmarishly sick that after we kill a child, we use his or her dead body for experimentation. But as our Jewish friends came to the conclusion of when they talked about the horrific experiments that were used against their brothers in the Holocaust and the commensurate medical scientific breakthroughs that came about because of it, they said, if we do not use those and benefit from it, then our brothers have died in vain. And so, biblically speaking, there's this doctrine called concurrence, and I'm not going to get into like the minutia of concurrence, but here's what I will say. Every Christian has benefited from an unjust death, right? Christ. But if you look at Acts 4, it says, truly in the city they got against your holy servant Jesus, Herod, Pontius, Pilate, the Jews. And it says they did whatever your will and hand determined beforehand should happen. And so Herod, Pontius Pilate, the Jews, Judas, all the rest of them, they're held individually responsible for their actions. And they're presented as bad people in the New Testament. And the actions that they committed are actions that they should avoid. However, it is clear that all of us have benefited from those evil actions. And so the point is, Christ didn't die in vain. We accept the good byproduct of his death. And then we say we fight like mad to make sure that nobody ever dies like Christ ever again. That is, an innocent person in unjust circumstances. And so what I would say is, because I am pro-life, if those children's death could promote life for other people, great. But then we should fight like mad to ensure that no child ever dies in those circumstances again. If there are, quote, scientists who want to use human bodies for experimentation for things like vaccines, those individuals ought to volunteer themselves. Part of my issue is accidental pregnancies do happen. Casual sex does happen. Why should an agreed upon non-committal act result in forced commitment via wage theft? Because consent is not the only value that drives a society, Ben. It was 11 degrees below zero yesterday night. And if I say, you know what? I no longer agree to have my two babies. If me and Soraya say, we no longer agree to have our two babies in our space, because you do believe in spatial autonomy, don't you? I mean, we have trespassing laws for that reason. And I take those two babies and I throw them outside, and the police pick up their lifeless bodies at my doorstep tomorrow. They'd say to me, are these your children? I'd say, well, they were. Now they're dead. The police would say, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'd say, well, Sawyer and I decided that we no longer consented to have them in our space. And so we kicked them out. And, they were violating our spatial autonomy. So we kicked them out because we no longer consented to have them. This is a form of wage theft because, they're not paying rent now. They were squatters here. So we kicked them out. They'd arrest us. On what principle? The principle would be, you're their parents. You're responsible to them. So societies are not this childish idea that what I want is the pinnacle principle of what runs society is nonsense. Most societies, the bedrock of most societies is people taking ownership and responsibility for their actions. They'd say, if you were the type of parent that didn't want their kids in the house, there's ways that you could have done that didn't result in their death. So that's how I'd answer that question, Ben. The Holocaust is a particular event in time. The aborted... No, again, Clyde, why can't you say baby? Why can't you say baby, Clyde? Why do you keep saying fetus? Here, Clyde, let me help you. Because you may not know. Let me show you what Oxford English's definition of fetus is, because maybe you're unclear. Because you keep saying fetus. You keep speaking Latin when you want to have this topic, which indicates to me that either that you're not very comfortable with dealing with the ramifications of what you're talking about. Here's what a fetus is: an unborn offspring of a mammal, in particular, an unborn human baby. more than 8 weeks after gestation. So you're talking about killing human babies. Why do you keep reverting to Latin? Do you have a hard time saying that we kill human babies in this country? The Holocaust was a particular time in which 6 million people were unjustly murdered by a willing populace. And the reason the Holocaust is important is because it lets us know that whole societies can turn against one demographic in society and kill them wholesale. So the reason we still need to talk about the Holocaust is to protect ourselves from being the same kinds of people. I don't accept the Holocaust, but there's nothing I can do about the Jewish Holocaust. I can do something, though, about the ageist Holocaust that's happening in our country and around the world. And that's what I'm doing. That's why I speak about it. And that's why I've paid heavy prices to speak against it. And I'm not talking about a silly little YouTube channel. There are very, very powerful forces at work that want to keep this industry and this practice alive. And by God's grace, I've sat across the table from those individuals in depositions for hours. Yeah, say baby. You should say baby. The fact that people keep reverting to Latin when they're talking about this action indicates to me that they understand that it's a heinous act and that they're using that term to divorce themselves from the moral ramifications of this practice that they're advocating for. That's what it says to me. If in our lifetimes they find a way to successfully merge human consciousness into robots, would you do it? Hell no. Hell no, I would not do that shit, bro. I could speak Latin too. Ora pro nobis Lucifer. But in Ben's defense, shouldn't the ending of a pregnancy be a moral question for a woman, God, her body, and her doctor, not the government? No. Bill, do you believe that a woman should be able to have her child killed at 9 months? And if you say no, do you think that should be a personal decision between herself and God and the doctor? To have her child killed at 9 months? Vin, what are your thoughts on pre-8-week gestation in that definition? I have no thoughts. It's still a baby. If you go to the Mayo Clinic, or if you go to anybody in common parlance, when the pregnancy test comes back positive, they say we're having a baby, or they say how's the baby, or if a woman has a miscarriage at 5 weeks, she says I lost the baby. A baby is simply a small child. Secondly, 99.999% of abortions happen past the 8-week period because the child is too small and it's too close. It's hard to distinguish from the uterine wall, and so you don't want to puncture the uterine wall and have the woman go into sepsis because that would be bad press for Planned Parenthood. So many times they'll have you wait at least 10 to 12 weeks so there's enough of a distinction so you can safely kill that child. Well, again, Clyde, I answered very clearly about murdered babies and scientific experiments. So I have no problem with looking in the face what I said. What I said was it's a horrible, terrible practice, and that we should do everything we possibly can to stop it, but that those children shouldn't die in vain, in much the same way that crucifying innocent people is a horrible, terrible practice, but that you should believe in Jesus so as to not have him die in vain. VIN, do you think if someone kicked a woman in the stomach, stole her food, and made her sick, that person should face no legal repercussions? This, dear listener, is the reason that I know, not that I believe, but that I know abortion is on its way out. This is the best that they can do. Look at this insane argument. If someone kicked a woman in the stomach, stole her food, and made her sick, that person should face no legal repercussions. Well, here's the thing. Orion, and so does Reza. Reza's about one in 3 months. He's about 15 months old. Sori's been kicked by Reza. He's taken our food. We have to tell him, no, Reza, stop. And he's also made Sori sick. So does she get to kill? Does she get to murder him? Should there be legal repercussions for that? This is the thing, Ben. You just jump from one ridiculous statement to another. It's unbelievable to me. Here's Ben. I'm coming over to kick Sori in the stomach, steal her food, and purposely make her sick. No, Ben. First of all, the baby in the womb doesn't purposely make her sick. That's number one. Number two, Ben, you're a grown man. That's a baby. Number three, Sori has no legal obligation to you because you are not her child. There's probably 4 billion children on the planet. Sori's only responsible for 6 out of those 8 billion people. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I will also kick that Zoe broad in the stomach too, because she looks like broccoli from VeggieTales. Zoe's my daughter. She's got the little puffy hair things because she doesn't put any product in her hair. Terrible argument. Look, Ben is probably one of the smartest guy I've run into on this channel. And this is what this poor man is reduced to in order to try to defend the practice of killing children via abortion. Now, I don't want to be trite about this because I know personally women who have been shoved into abortion clinics. I know of women who have been blackmailed by boyfriends and by sex traffickers, which the supposed pro-choice warriors never want to talk about. So I have a very, very serious problem with the pro-life movement villainizing women for abortion. As we talked about in the previous discussion, we're in a brutally violent capitalistic system that many times puts young ladies in damn near impossible situations. So the reason I'm saying this is because I want to recognize the gravity of the situation for women. And being a Christian, I believe that God put men at the helm of society. And so if there is a grievous societal ill, the responsibility ultimately rests on us. So this is our issue ultimately, not women's as far as culpability goes. Ben, he truly is. Ben is one of the most brilliant human beings I've ever ran across. He's brilliant, but when you got a guy that has this level of brilliance reduced to this nonsense, I don't know what to tell you. Holy smokes. Are you in line to get Starlink? We've been waiting as we are living in the rural area and pay $250 for 8 down. They're thievery, and I warned them that someday they would regret the greed. Can't wait for it. Yeah, man, I hope so. Maine isn't necessarily rural, but where we are, we only have Spectrum, and there's only one choice. And I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the channel, but we had horrible luck with our internet stuff. And there's nothing you can do. And the problem is they know there's nothing that you can do. They know there's nothing you can do about it. And that really sucks. I got to tell you. There's nothing, very few things more frustrating. We bomb Syria, Yemen, and others in the future. This bombing cannot be stopped, so we just accept and gain from the benefits of these actions. That's the abortion debate. I agree. The bombing can be stopped, though. If we stop voting for politicians who keep saber rattling, like the Democrats were doing, all during the Trump administration, or like the Republicans were doing during the Bush administration, we have to stop this immoral action of aborting human beings. I'm glad that we don't say things like, we bombed a bunch of carbon-based life forms in Syria, or we neutralized 48 carbon-based life forms in Afghanistan. Now, is it true that they're carbon-based life forms? Yes. But it's important to say Syrians or human beings so that we can humanize the subjects that we've killed. I'm glad that we didn't use hyper scientific or Latin phrases to try to divorce ourselves from the ramifications of what we do overseas. Of course, we can say Syrians or human beings because those people are overseas and we don't see the ramifications of it. There isn't a Syria execution site on every street corner in America, so we can say, oh, we killed those people. So we can still humanize them, but we have the convenience of distance, so we don't have to deal with it. But when it's at home, then we have to start getting super technical or super Latin so that we can divorce ourselves conscientiously from what we're taking part in actively or passively. Shout out to Peter. I appreciate it, bro. I really, really do appreciate it. For sure, for sure. For sure, for sure. I appreciate you being here, by the way. The bombs the bombs might stop once we run out of natural resources to steal, inshallah. You know, some of it's like, come on, America, how much more do we need? You know what I'm saying? Like, at some point, holy shit. VIN, I'm not sure if you've already touched on this topic already, but your thoughts on the Ukraine situation. I think that I touched on this a little bit earlier. Later, XBM. I touched on this a little bit earlier, that it seemed to me that Mr. Trump had more of a handle on Putin, on Mr. Putin, than Obama or Biden have. And all this saber rattling and this eye poking, you didn't see this happening during the Trump administration. Trump was actually pretty aggressive. He was supplying in full, in broad daylight, he was supplying Russian enemies with arms and things of that nature to defend themselves and all kinds of things. I mean, it seems that Putin understood, I don't really want to get into a pissing contest with Trump about this issue. Whereas now, we're in a situation where Mr. Putin doesn't seem very worried about Biden's response. Remember, The infamous, here's the red line, and if you cross that red line, there will be consequences. That was Mr. Obama. Well, Putin remembers that Biden was the vice president when that happened and didn't happen. Right? So, that's one of those situations where I think this is one of those unforeseen byproducts. And I also think that Putin rightly surmises that Americans are way more worried about COVID and the economy than and the ramifications of COVID and the economy than they are about Ukraine. And to some degree, that's rightly so. So when we kill them, what are the benefits for us to legitimize the killing like we do to legitimize abortion? Well, there are no benefits to legitimizing any form of killing of an innocent person, whether it's abortion or whether it's people overseas. The problem is that America is a global empire, and as such, America wants to assert its dominance all over the world, and Americans are eminently selfish people. And so Americans in the main just don't care that we're massacring innocent people all over the world. Because at some level, subliminally, Americans know that we benefit from that somehow. And it's the same thing about massacring. Planned Parenthood will tell you this: 99% of the abortions that they commit are committed for monetary reasons. So at the end of the day, the killing foreign and domestic is happening because of power and money. That's how it's justified. And we will face the consequences of those actions if we do not change course. And you don't need to be a theologian to know that. Do you believe in karma? I believe in the principle of that which a man sows, he will reap. But I also believe that grace trumps karma. I believe that if all of us got what we deserved or got what was coming around to us, then none of us would be here, because all of us are more sinful than we realize. And so God has to function with a presupposition of grace toward us. Otherwise, he'd have to annihilate us all. Ben Chesterman says, there's no middle class without capitalism, government globally going more left, even right party leaning left in Australia. Ben, why does capitalism always need a slave class, particularly America? So America has never had a time when there wasn't a slave class to uphold capitalism. Whether it was the indigenous peoples, transatlantic slave trade, whether it was the breaker boys, 6-7-year-old kids in mines in the Industrial Revolution, whether it's the 13th Amendment, where we literally have it wired into our Constitution that we can still have slaves so long as they're incarcerated, whether it's exporting slavery in sweatshops and things of that nature. Why, if capitalism is so glorious in creating a middle class, why does it always, especially American capitalism, need a slave class to uphold it? And do you believe that the creation of the so-called middle class, the omelet of the middle class, is worth the breaking of the eggs of millions of slaves in order to make that happen? Serious question. Jambi in the house. Why are you wearing glasses? Just to mix it up. Just to mix it up. Just to mix it up. Maybe God's grace includes annihilation at the end of the time span of the universe. It's possible, although I don't believe that annihilation is God's ultimate plan, but I do understand what you're saying, for sure. Ben Chesterman, your opinion is so stupid you don't actually get to be a Ben anymore. I'm revoking your name. You're now Ken. Ben, you'll have to excuse Ben Webb. He's Ben Webb. Nothing can be done. But you say that good comes from abortion as in scientific development. So what is the good that comes from bombing the Middle East? Well, I didn't say that good always comes from an evil action. You brought up a specific kind of evil action, which makes up 0.00000000001% of all abortions. Okay? So I didn't say that there's a universal principle that good always comes from bad. You talked specifically about vaccinations, so I talked about that. That's all I'm saying. None of those goods warrant the evils that come about. None of them, including vaccinations and including any benefit we got from the human experiments during the Holocaust. They don't warrant those goods. But the best things that we can do after the fact is make sure those folks don't die in vain. That's not the same question, my brother. What's with the bandana lately? It's just a thing. My brother just texted me. He's like, yo, I'm stealing that bandana thing, my guy. I said, take it, bro. The bandana hides the mark of the beast. Quick. He's repping the East Stains massive. Throw gang signs. Yeah, I was never a gangster. I had my friends, and we got mixed up in a physical shit, but we wouldn't be gangsters because I just think we were too prideful to let anybody tell us what to do. I mean, gangbangers had to go to meetings. They literally had meetings where we were from, and the leaders of the gangs in the area were literally called superiors, and we just couldn't do it. There were times when gangbangers would say, "Man, if you would just join, you got beef with these guys, we'd be able to help you." Blah blah blah. But But yeah, we were gangsters. No, the glasses are actually, there's not even any glasses in them, bro. It's completely for the look. I wonder if these gangs are now using Zoom. We had this park called Malali Park. So the Latin Kings used to meet in Malali Park. Although the Latin Kings were actually, that's probably the quote of the gangsters are using Zoom. The Latin Kings met in Malali, but Malali was, Plimpton. So the Latin Kings were in Plimpton, and then the Bloods would meet in Malali. Malali was literally right outside of Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium. On it wasn't 149th, 160th, I believe. But yeah, the Bloods used to meet in Malali, and the Crips used to, the Latin Kings used to meet in Plimpton. Yeah, no doubt, Clyde, no doubt. Gangs are actually structured like businesses and even profit in similar fashions. The reason they seem scary is that their death squads are next door as opposed to in another country. No, one of the things that I found out about gangs, almost as I was leaving New York, was actually that there's simply the military wing of a drug operation. So one drug kingpin would have a drug operation, and I didn't understand how capitalism worked, but there's supply and demand, and location is everything. And so if you wanted to protect that location because it was a high competition area and you wanted to push out all the competitors, you needed foot soldiers to do it, and that's why you had gangs ultimately. See, I didn't understand that until I hit about senior year in high school. I was like, holy shit, wait a second. That's what was happening. Of course, these kids were taught all this other shit. It was unbelievable. Unfreaking real. The guy at the top of the gang never got bloody. Never. He most of the time, those guys got to the point where they didn't even need to be at the block anymore. And then they would deputize one of these stooges to go out there and hang out with them. And so you'd see a gang of Bloods at the train station, because train station's obviously high traffic location. The bodega was a high traffic location. So in my block on 170th, the bodega was like right at the intersection. The Latin Kings dominated that place. They just completely dominated it. I remember one time one guy was trying to sell over there, and the nicest guy in the neighborhood pulled out his box and just went at the guy. I was like, holy shit. I couldn't believe it, because the guy was like such a nice dude. He was like literally the nicest, wouldn't even swear, was just the nicest guy, always smiled, always treated me good. They'd say, oh, Jamaica, because I was from Jamaica, you know, Jamaica. Hey, Jamaica. I was always cool with them, you know what I'm saying? Like, they loved me. And he was always nice to me. And I just remember one time I saw him, he just, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, holy shit, ooh. But yeah, that was what it was all about. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You realize capitalists are in middle class as well, small business owners and franchises. If you don't find a way to pay less tax, you'll fall out of middle class, lose your business or your home. Ben, I'm very aware of that, as I have multiple small businesses, this being one of them. But you made a statement, and I asked a question about why capitalism always needs slave labor to uphold itself. And I asked you if the omelet of the supposed middle class, which is swiftly disappearing because of capitalists, I asked you if the omelet of the middle class warranted the breaking of all those poor eggs into slavery. So could you please answer that question? If capitalism is so good, why does it always need a slave class to uphold it? And number two, does the omelet of the middle class warrant the breaking of the eggs of poor people here and all over the world? That's the question. Please answer. I assume I miss NFL talk. So far, so crazy in the playoffs. Don't sit on the Bills. Would love to see Allen Brady in the Super Bowl. I don't think anything was crazy. I believe Aaron Rodgers is overrated. I think Aaron Rodgers is worried about his stats. He plays way too safe. You know, that 3rd and 11 with 4 minutes and 32 seconds to go, where he throws a 25-yard pass that was impossible for homeboy to catch, who was he was draped and double covered. This is what Aaron Rodgers does. He wants to play it safe. He wants to put it on everybody else. It wasn't a surprise to me. Joe Burrow is a straight stud, and you know, Ryan Tannehill has always been a mediocre. Hey, Amy in the house. I was wondering when you were going to lift your communication embargo on me, Amy. So I'm glad at least to see you. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, you know, I wasn't surprised at all. Ryan Tannehill, look, Derrick Henry wasn't himself. He wasn't the typical dominant Derrick Henry. He got stopped on that 2-point conversion. He got stopped on the 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter. He wasn't the Derrick Henry that we've seen. I think he'll be back next year. Ryan Tannehill is Ryan Tannehill. He's a subpar quarterback, and they ran into a kid who's extremely confident and extremely talented. So I didn't think any of the wins were surprising to me at all. What are your thoughts on the reason physical? Hey, Dave's Life Hacks. What's up, buddy? I'm assuming you have a web. The church killed more people than wars. That's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. I don't even know how to interface with that. World War I and World War II killed more human beings in just those two wars than all other human beings in all wars combined. and that was not the church. Good night. What are your thoughts on recent rise of physical attacks against Asians? I think it's horrible. I agree. I agree, Amy. I agree. I missed an awesome show, but I mean, to be honest with you, I was more bummed about the you aspect than the show. I've seen Evanescence live already, pretty close up as a, media person, but I wanted to see you. But I'm pretty sure it would have been an awesome show, though. Well, yeah, I think it's horrible. I think it's horrible. I think what China is doing to Muslims is also horrible, but that's not people here. I'm hoping, though, that since we got hate crimes legislation passed pretty quick for our Asian friends, while we still can't get lynching to be outlawed federally, but that's a different story. But yeah, I think it's terrible to take out all our angst in the world on Asian people, for sure. Titans suck ass. Tannehill had no ideas. Bengals too good. I don't think the Titans suck. The Titans were the number one team in the AFC. They earned themselves a bye in a conference that has the Bills and Patrick Mahomes in it. So they were not a terrible team. It's just that when you get to the playoffs, it's one game. It's 4 quarters. It's one game. And I think as long as you have a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, you're gonna get that kind of result. If I was them, I would go hard for a Kirk Cousins type quarterback, even a Case Keenum type quarterback. I would look into getting back Marcus Mariota, because Mariota is a deep threat, a dual threat guy. He can run and he can throw the ball. Imagine what kind of havoc Marcus Mariota could wreak when Derrick Henry is back to being Derrick Henry. Mariota has also shown some moxie in the playoffs. He did that against the Chiefs. So I think that they should really, really, really consider it. I really do. Podge, thank you so much for the super chat, my man. I really appreciate it. Do you think God would let other human beings go extinct so another life form can evolve for another million years? No. No, I don't, because I think God is too invested. I was in a relationship for about 15 years, and most of you, if you guys could look at how the relationship was going from day one, you guys would have said, Vin, it's going to end badly. Don't do it. And I ended up marrying the girl, having kids with her, and I put 110% of myself into it, and she ended up leaving and finding happiness elsewhere, whatever. If I had to do it all over again, I'd have done it all over again. And I think God is too invested in human beings and in you in particular to say, man, fuck these people. We're gonna whatever. I put literal blood, sweat and literal tears, literal blood into that relationship. And the more you invest in those kinds of relationships, the harder and harder and harder it becomes to just let them go. And that's why it was easier for her to just say, man, fuck you, I'm out of here, than for me. There were lots of times on the way where, I mean, she admitted it now, because we had a kind of like a little post-mortem conference on what happened. She admitted there were multiple times when she was just trying to sabotage a relationship, and I wouldn't let it go. So God is too invested in human beings. He's literally bled for human beings in order to just let us go. That's what I believe. Nice try sweetening it up. It's still big time mad how you canceled it. Sorry said the same thing. Now, being a man, I don't understand So at some point, if you want to have a conversation, I'd be open to the conversation. But she was kind of like, the way you did it was, and I was like, oh, what are you talking about? But now you basically confirmed it. So I'm certain I will probably apologize to you. I don't want to apologize to you now because I truly don't understand what the problem is. But I'm sure when the three of us talk, if we ever get to talk again, you both will be able to tag team me like you guys always do, and you can explain to me what the problem is. And I'll explain to you where I was, but I don't think that it's going to do much. Whoa! $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Trying out how the super chat stuff works. First time, love the stream. I appreciate it, Kamikaze. I really do. Bullocks. Men have started to talk about sports. The conversation is over. You should find... there's a lot of philosophy in sports, my guy. A lot of philosophy in sports. There's a ton of philosophy in sports. You should check it out. I think the Niners win was kind of dumb, but it's because I think Packers made a really dumb play call. Do I think Rock is dead? No, I do not think Rock is dead. Not at all. In reality, the first mass peace movement was started in the supposed dark and backwards Middle Ages. The church killed more people than wars. Ridiculous, ahistorical nonsense. Yeah, that was just... I'm sorry I came at it so aggressively. I was kind of like hit from left field with that statement that the church has killed more people than wars. Yikes. Opinions on sharing people's really personal secrets behind their backs. I think when people tell you secrets, it's a very, very sacred thing. And honestly, you do more harm to yourself as a person than the person you're betraying when you do that. We were in a situation, Sori and I, where there was a mass betrayal by people that we invested a lot of time and effort into. And it spilled over into social media. And I told Sori, we're not going to be those people. Don't say anything to those people. One was a real practical one, which is if you go to war with people on social media, it never ends. The second one, though, was I was a kind of person that all these people would share very deep, dark secrets with. And in the modern age, a lot of that stuff is sent to you in text form. So I had, while these people were talking all types of shit, I had all their texts. And I could have destroyed a lot of those people with simply posting screenshots of those texts. Some of you guys know I'm a very, very private person as far as personal goes. So I had everything on them. They had nothing on me except for what they made up and could substantiate. So I could have completely cut everybody's throat. I never did it. My son asked me after, he said, how come you never killed those people? How come you never did that? And I said, they told me that in confidence. He said, yeah, but they betrayed you. And I said, yeah, and I'm not going to compound that by betraying myself. Because in the heat of battle, when all this is over, you're going to have to look yourself in the face and see how you conducted yourself. So some of those people have since come to me and apologized and please forgive me and all the rest of it. And I haven't said a word to them. good or ill. You know, they've messaged me, they've texted me. One of them actually forced their way into my house. They literally like showed up at the doorstep of my house and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, all this." And I said, "Man, you're good, man. Just don't ever come over here again. Man, go live your life, bro." So yeah, I think it's a horrible thing to do ultimately to yourself. Because you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror, man. There's nothing more valuable than a clean conscience. So I think that's how strongly I feel about that. What do you think about the recent admission by the government that UFOs are real? What do you believe about UFOs? Yeah, I talked about that at the beginning of the stream. I do believe UFOs are real. I mean, I think that's incontrovertible. Now, what the nature of those UFOs are, whether it be interplanetary vehicles, which presumably would then necessitate interplanetary beings, whether they be hyper technology from China or Russia, whether they be secret United States military projects, or whether they be none of the above, or you know, whether they be holographic, right? Because these are transmedial devices. Some of these machines are that, you know, they go through water and air pretty much at the same velocity, don't lose much. And so, at least according to some of these videos, it looks like they have actual corporeal ramifications when they you know, they're not just, you know, holographs. And of course, there are also where I land actually is interdimensionality. So I'm not an interplanetary guy, but I would say I'm more of the interdimensional aspect of things. Now, obviously, when you think about the fact that I don't believe that I don't believe that we've evolved to see reality as it is. We've evolved to see reality in the simplest possible way that's going to increase our chances of fitness to the highest degree. Okay? Or you could say God created us to perceive the world not as it is, but to perceive the world as, again, what's going to promote our fitness to the highest possible degree. And so understanding that puts some possibilities around what UFOs are, etc. But you know that whole thing that happened a couple years ago, is the dress gold and white or is it blue and black? Sori and I saw the dress as gold and white. I was like, oh, it's a gold and white dress. And other people say, no, that's a blue and black dress. And if you would have said, look, your firstborn is on the line here, okay, gun to head, what do you think it is? I'd have told you it was a gold and white dress, and I was completely wrong. It was a blue and black dress, right? So our perceptions, our ability to perceive the world as it is for something as simplistic as that is bunk. So the idea that we can then interpret correctly what the hell is going on with these machines I think we ought to have some epistemic humility, I think. Yeah, but if they tell you in secret they've done some fucked up shit to others, do you think you should expose that? Well, of course. If somebody tells me I did X and Y, Z thing to a child, you're going to prison. Or other things that happen to you. But see, I'm the type of person where people know not to tell me that stuff. People know not to tell me that. If you tell me you're going to hurt yourself, well, people know to tell me that because they know I'm going to handle it accordingly. I'm going to get you the help you need. A lot of times that's a cry for help, right? So that's a good amendment to that. For sure. For sure, for sure. Dwayne Johnson is dead. Dwayne Johnson is not dead. What are you talking about? Reagan said that a threat from the skies would unite all mankind. A common enemy always unites people. Yeah, I think that's an overly simplistic way of looking at the world. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that that's true at all. The Rock is not dead at all. I wish people would stop saying stuff like that. What do you believe about aliens in relation to God? Well, there are, to be overly simplistic, there are angels who are described in the scripture. There are demons who are described in the scripture. And at times, there are vehicles that are described in the scripture. And so, that's what I'd say. I'd say I don't think they're interplanetary. I think they're interdimensional. And I think that's probably some of the phenomena that we're seeing. Right over VIN's head. Well, that's not difficult. That's not difficult to get stuff over my head at all. My fun 2 cents for VIN. Stay progressive. Ditch new metal. Embrace real metal. Arc enemy. Dark tranquility. Take ancient texts with a grain of salt. Evidence and empathy. I take everything with a grain of salt, and so should you. I commend it to you. Take physicalism and materialism with a grain of salt, and take the supposed infallibility of scientists also with a grain of salt. I think recent events have demonstrated very clearly that people who are scientists are not these objective information processing machines that are only after truth. I think that that's been made pretty clear. Glad that we have the same approach on that, Mara, because my best friend or a family member did some shit. I would not hesitate to expose him, even if it meant I would be branded a traitor. Yeah, I agree. Do I think that when we have deja vu, it's telepathic abilities we don't fully understand? Probably true. I've never phrased it that way before, but yes. Yo, Vin, I wish I could have woken up sooner. Did you get the tetra? Yes, I did. Thank you very much. I can't wait to show it the story. I haven't showed it to her yet. Would you convert to a plant-based diet if you studied evidence and conclude it was in your best interest? Probably not. I would just probably double and triple up on my supplements and my gym time. Especially with my sauna time. Because my sauna time right now is pretty brutal, but it has hella health benefits. What happened was major labels stopped signing bands. Yep. Science does not have a monopoly on reality. No, it does not. No, it does not. Scientists are the smartest ants in a darkened room, fiddling about, trying to describe the Hadron Collider. That's what scientists are. I agree. Science is not, in fact, a value-free enterprise as popularly conceived. The history of science shows this. Yeah, it's clear. Wouldn't you know it? They're human beings that have biases and tendencies and can be bribed and shaped and influenced and etc. What's your thoughts on Bob Lazar? Bob Lazar is the guy that said he worked on the spaceship on Area 51. Is that Bob Lazar? Let me Google him. Here's Amy. By the way, I checked your 9-month abortion chopping babies claim. The only reference of it is a non-substantiated speech by Trump. Doctors later explained that 9-month abortions do not happen in the U.S. Okay, Amy, here's what you should do. Here's drhearn.com. Here's drhearn.com. He's in Boulder, Colorado. The thing is, Amy, that's how I know that you were not paying attention in our discussion, because I didn't quote Trump. I actually went directly to the source. There are multiple states in the union that don't even have gestational limits, Colorado being one of them. There's drhearn.com. You can see right there. And in there, Mr. Hearn talked about late-stage abortion, third trimester abortions, etc. There are no gestational limits in Colorado. There's none in Washington, D.C. or Hawaii, etc. Same thing in New York. You can kill a child up to the 9th month in those states. And there, Dr. Hearn will tell you that he will abort your child for such crimes as psychiatric indication. That is, the mother says she can't handle having a child. Or even fetal anomaly, not limited, but including trisomy 21, which is Down syndrome. He makes it clear that he's talking about Down syndrome. So, reading an article from Vox and all the rest of it from people who are biased about the topic is not helpful. I'm sure you know that. Go to drhearn.com, peruse those sites yourself, and prove that I'm not telling the truth. Okay? But it's clear to me that you were not listening to what was being said, because I quoted the site directly. We had a friend that said, "Show me this where a doctor says he's going to abort in the 3rd trimester for Down syndrome." And I said, "Person, if that could be demonstrated, would you change your position?" No answer. I then went to quote Mr. Hearn verbatim from his own website, and we just jumped to the next topic, which always happens when that topic comes up. Yeah, but Amy, it doesn't matter what he's saying, as we have just discussed. Amy, as we have just discussed, scientists and doctors, etc., are not infallible sources of information. We have a doctor that's claiming to do it. He's doing it. So it's absolutely mind-boggling. You got a doctor who's saying, "Hell yeah, I'm doing this shit. Fuck those kids. Trisomy 21, Down syndrome. Hell yeah, I'll abort that kid." You have only one doctor saying that. Sis, the doctor is doing it. He's not saying it. He's doing it. He's doing it, sis. You can go to Colorado right now and have him do it. And again, there are 6 other states in the union who will also do it. You go to their webs, go to Planned Parenthood websites. They don't want any gestational limits. That's a fact. So you're talking to me about Trump, the only person who's saying this is Trump, and then once you found the proof, you said, well, that's only one doctor. You see how the stuff keeps changing? He's not the only doctor. No, he's not. And why folks have to continuously deny this, I have no idea. If you believe in the practice, if you believe in complete maternal bodily autonomy, this shouldn't trouble you. This shouldn't trouble you at all. Here, listen, guys. Patients coming for a later abortion, 28 weeks and over, are often seeking services for termination of a desired pregnancy that has developed serious complications. We perform either a 4-day procedure similar to our 2nd trimester approach, or in rare cases offer an induced fetal demise. What do you mean give you proof? My sister, do you not know I'm not trying to be trite here, but do you know what a gestational limit is? A gestational limit is the specified amount of time that the government says you cannot abort at that point. Colorado, New York, Hawaii, the District of Columbia, and a couple other states have 0 gestational limits. And Dr. Hearn just told us that the third trimester, 28 weeks or more, he will kill your child. That's what he said. And just for full disclosure, here is what a baby looks like at 28 weeks. This is what we're talking about at 28 weeks gestation. This baby is not even 28 weeks gestation. But I'll show it to you guys if you want. Amy, I'm sorry, but I don't know what to tell you here. Here you go. That's 12 weeks premature. 28 weeks is 7 months. So he rightly points out that the gestational period of the third trimester is 28 weeks. He then says 28 weeks and over, because Colorado has no gestational limits for abortion. Those are the facts. No, see, you're adding in 0. No. Amy, you're adding 0.01. He never said 0.01. He never said that. What he says was it's rare cases. And the kind of mental state it would take for a woman to kill her 9-month-old child, even if the child commits the crime of having trisomy 21 or Down syndrome, is rare. I agree. But I never said there are millions of 9-month-olds being chopped up. There's no difference, sister, ontologically between a 9-month-old and a 9-week-old other than development. But you and other people were A, trying to deny that it happened, and B, trying to say that the only time that happens is when the woman's life is in jeopardy. And that is not true. It's not true. Children with Down syndrome are inconvenient. And that's why it's happening, Amy. It's the same thing in Canada. In Canada, the entire country has no gestational limits, Amy. So again, to me, look this stuff in the face. If you're going to say that we have complete, and notice how your argument changed even in this conversation. Initially, you were saying, Vin, I read this article. The doctor said that that's not happening. Then you said, there's only one doctor saying it. And I said, no, he's not saying it. What I'm saying is he's doing it. He's committing the act. And then you said, well, it's only 0.0001%. So what's your actual argument here, Amy? Because it's changed about 3 or 4 times in this discussion. Do you have a problem? Amy, do you have a problem with babies being killed at 28 weeks and beyond for committing the crime of trisomy 21? Do you have a problem with that? Does that bother you? And if it bothers you, why? How come? What about it bothers you? You obviously don't understand numbers. Uh, Amy, Amy, I never. You can go back because the video is up there. I never put the stats of how many children are massacred in the womb at 9 months. I didn't say millions and millions of babies were being massacred in the womb. As a matter of fact, I said there are 6 states. We've got 50 states currently in the union. You are trying to shift the emphasis here because you came in here armed with some Vox article that you thought rebutted or refuted what I initially stated, was that there are 6 states in the union where you can kill your child up to the 9th month. That's the statement that I made. Your friend initially said, no, that's only for life of the mother. I then quoted Dr. Hearn verbatim, where he talked about psychiatric indication, as well as things like trisomy 21, which is Down syndrome, where you can kill your child for that purpose. Because you ignored that, you came back quoting a Vox article. Well, you didn't quote the article, but you know, whatever. You quoted the doctor in the article of obstetrics or whatever in Oregon. And then I then showed you the actual website. You then said, that's what one doctor's saying. And now you're trying to make this an argument about statistics. Sister, when did I say that this was ubiquitous in America? And doesn't the fact that I said only 6 states allow for gestational limit-free abortion indicate that it would by definition have to be rare? But you're trying to shift the goalpost. Untrue. Untrue. Sister, what you could do is, if you would go to the debate, VIN debates abortion, the vast majority of the discussion that I had was about a child. As a matter of fact, wouldn't you know it, abortion came up earlier today, and people kept using the term fetus, and I said a fetus is a child, is a baby post 8 weeks gestation. I didn't talk about 9 months. I didn't talk about that at all. Amy, you're just lashing out. You're going after arguments that I never made. I never said millions and millions of babies were being killed at the 9th month. I was very, very specific and careful, and your argument here has changed millions of times. Millions. It's not Vox, it's USA Today. I don't care. Either way, it's wrong because we've got the evidence. There's a doctor here who will tell you why and when he does these abortions. Mr. Hearn is actually extremely proud of it. He's actually invented new forms of abortion in order to do that because of the lack of gestational limits in Colorado. I'm very familiar with Dr. Hearn. So, as I said, your argument has changed on a multitude of occasions here. I did an hour and a half debate. I didn't talk about 9-month abortions. I'm not against 9-month abortions. I'm against all abortions, period. So the only reason I brought up, no, I didn't call you stupid, sis. The only reason I brought up 9-month abortions, which to this moment hasn't been answered by any of you, is if you bring up the bodily autonomy argument that a woman is in control, it should have complete control over the child's body because the child resides in her body, then logically speaking, you would have to also apply that at the 9th month. And since we have 6 states where that is possible, do you support the killing of a child up to the 9th month in those states in the name of bodily autonomy? None of you will answer that question. I asked a question earlier today, actually. So the question I'm asking, I'm asking you the same question. Since you're talking about the female's bodily autonomy, Amy, do you believe that a woman should be able to do that up to the 9th month, considering we have 6 states where that's possible? Or would you limit that? And if so, on what basis would you limit that? I've shown you stats. You've shown me one doctor's yapping. I haven't showed you one doctor's yapping. I've explained to you that there are 6 states without gestational limits, and I've also showed you that the agenda of folks in New York in concert with Planned Parenthood is to have the entire country have no gestational limits. Those are facts. But can we answer? Oh, actually, good to see you, Joe. Now it's 8 states. Sorry. Okay, I believe it's up to each woman to decide. Certainly not up to you. Okay, so you're okay that so if a woman decides that she wants to kill her child at the 9th month, Amy, do you believe she should be able to do that? You're saying she should be free to have that choice in the name of bodily autonomy. It's a yes or no question. Because I know how Ben's going to answer. Ben's going to say, yeah, chop him up. Ben's going to say, yeah, chop him up, get rid of him. But is that your position? Is it your position that women should be free to kill their 9-month-old child in the name of bodily autonomy? Because that was the genesis of the entire 9-month discussion in the first place. As a matter of fact, that is the only time I bring up the 9-month discussion. To get folks to answer that question, and they never answer it directly, never. Except for Ben. My niece was born 3 months early from emergency surgery and was only 2 pounds. Nobody can tell me that she is not a person. Christine, one, I'm very happy that your niece was given a chance to live, and two, you're absolutely right. If any gun holder decides to kill a trespasser, is that okay? My sister, I will answer that question for you as soon as you answer mine, because I've been asking you and other people that question for damn near close to a week now, and none of you will answer the question directly, so I'll ask it again. I promise you I'll answer that question. I will answer it again. Do you believe that a woman should have the freedom to kill her child at 9 months in the womb in the name of maternal bodily autonomy, yes or no? Should she be able to have that choice? Ben says, first 225 months. If it isn't at least 18 years old, it hasn't done anything worthwhile, go ahead and kill it. I don't think it would be an upset, to be honest with you, if the Bucks lost. I don't think it would be an upset if the Bucks lost, because there's no Tristan Wirfs. To be honest with you, I'm the biggest Brady fan in the world. I have no idea how the hell he's going to pull this off, to be honest with you. I would be shocked. Here's whattoexpect.com. Whattoexpect.com from the famous book What to Expect When You're Expecting. Here's what a child looks like at the beginning of the 3rd trimester. That's 28 weeks. 28 weeks. Here you go. That's what a child looks like at 28 weeks. Here is Dr. Hearn telling us that he will kill your child beginning at the 28-week mark. Again, here's Dr. Hearn telling us that he will kill your child beginning at the 28-week mark in Colorado. There's drhearn.com. Patients coming for later abortion, 28 weeks and over, are often seeking services of termination of a desired pregnancy that develops serious complications. We perform either a 4-day procedure similar to a 2nd trimester approach, or in rare cases offer an induced fetal demise. That's the new procedure that he himself invented and bragged about in the articles that I read of him. Truly a monstrous person. Here are the fetal anomalies that he will kill your child at 28 weeks for, among other things. This is all from his website. There are generally 2 kinds of problems, fetal anomalies, with pregnancies like this. One kind involves the observation of discovery of a genetic disorder that predictably would lead to a very serious problems for a young child. This includes things like trisomy 21, Down syndrome, trisomy 18 and 13, and others that are not so frequent or well known, end quote. That's all from his website. It's all there. Yes. Okay. Okay. It's up to any woman to decide what she wants to do. It's then her conscience that she has to deal with, and pricks like giving grief to women who have to make such a horrible, like you giving grief to women who have to make such a horrible decision. Well, I am willing to be called whatever name necessary, because I'm not going to be a coward and not stand up for this child, because my friends will be mean to me on YouTube. Because we're talking about killing this kid. And that's just the beginning of the third trimester for committing the crime of having Down syndrome, Amy. Now, Amy, you don't believe I'm a prick for saying that we shouldn't kill an 8-9-month-old child for having Down syndrome. You don't believe that. You're upset at me, but you don't believe I'm a prick for saying that this is a terrible practice. I've gone on record on numerous occasions, you weren't here earlier, but I've said that since God makes men the leaders of society, I believe that the culpability of the evil of abortion stands with us. After all, Roe v. Wade was an all-male Supreme Court. Amy? I have recounted on numerous occasions men shoving girls into abortion clinics. I've recounted on numerous occasions sex traffickers who herd their women into abortion clinics for obvious reasons. You're trying to make this overly simplistic. And you can be upset at me. And look, I value you as a person, as a friend. But I'm not going to compromise this for anybody. For anybody. For any reason. Now, I value you as a person, as a friend. But I'm willing to lose the entire world. Because in 20 years, when all of this becomes illegal, I'm not going to stand before God and the generations of kids that we've slaughtered and said, I was a punk coward because I wanted people to like me on Facebook. I wanted people to be nice to me on YouTube, and they were going to say all types of mean things about me if I stood up for you, or the governor of the state was going to come after me. I'm a man. So I teach my kids that God has given us strength so that we could protect those who are weaker than ourselves. So it is what it is. God bless you. But I'm not compromising for anyone. What do you think the SCOTUS ruling will be? SCOTUS ruling will be on what? So it's just up to the mother if she wants to take a life. How come when a pregnant woman is murdered, they charge a killer for both lives and see the double standards? I agree. There's lots of double standards. And look, I think that if you are pro-life, that we need to think about how funds are allocated. As I've been saying, we live in a violently capitalistic society, and there are a lot of vulnerable women who need a lot of monetary system. The entire culture of our society has to change. It's extremely easy to get an abortion. It's extremely difficult to get to do an adoption. Stories. I mean, look, in our particular crew in particular, there are lots and lots of adoptions, but it's extremely difficult to do that. If you've ever tried to adopt, good night. And some of those stringencies make sense. You got to make sure we're doing our best to put the kid in a stable home and things like that. And there are fire codes and things of that nature. But there are other things that are just a lot of, in my view, unnecessary red tape. And I think there needs to be an entire financial restructuring to go along with reversing Roe v. Wade to put women in better situations so that we no longer have a culture that says if you have a child at a young age, your opportunities and your upward mobility in society is going to be permanently stunted. So I don't believe in just, oh, we need to end the practice and leave things as they are. No, we need to end the practice and completely change society, in particular in the way society treats vulnerable women. So there's a lot of things that we have to do. Missing the big picture here. If abortion is illegal, women will just have accidental miscarriage. The net result is the same, but one more dangerous to the woman. Okay, well, prove that. Prove before the 1970s that there are all these women dying of accidental abortions. Prove miscarriages. Prove that. That's all just rhetoric from Planned Parenthood and all the rest of it. What I think we should do is we should completely reorient society that women don't feel the need to go against their own nature and kill their own children. I believe that, and the other thing too is parental sponsorship is something that a lot of people don't understand. This is something that one of my folks in my crew talked about, where she talked about. She said, adopting a vulnerable child or a child from a vulnerable woman is basically theft of that child. It's basically kidnapping. She said, you've got this woman over a barrel who, by all intents and purposes, would keep the child. But because she's under financial duress, you get to take her. And so it's sort of like halfway between fostering and adoption, where you basically sign a contract and say, we will raise your kid for the next 5 years or unless and until you get to a place where you feel you're financially solvent. And then we'll give your child back, no questions asked. That is also something that needs to be part of American culture as a whole, because a lot of women are making that decision because they can't bear the fact of carrying a child for 9 months and then completely and totally giving them away. So what I'm talking about is not just ending Roe v. Wade. I'm talking about overhauling the entire system in favor of vulnerable women. That's what I'm talking about. And yeah, that's going to cost us a lot of money. But I think that it'll work for the best for everybody involved, and then we'll truly have a culture of life, and then all the supposed pro-life folks can put their money on where their mouth is, and they'll vote accordingly, and people will expose themselves. Because I do believe, even though a lot of this is just Planned Parenthood propaganda, I do believe that a lot of pro-lifers are misogynistic and don't truly care about the circumstances that lead to this horrible practice. It is necessary pro-life people aren't just against abortion, but also have a whole life ethic in supporting policies that create a social safety net to support women, children, families, etc. I agree completely. I have problems with foster care motivated by money. I'm old and there were many orphanages when I was young. Not perfect, but better in my opinion, unless there's a foster care that is not money based. Look, there's a lot of things that we can do to foster an entire culture of life here, but saying you can't have an abortion is just the rudiments. What are the causes, and what can we do as a whole so that women in coming generations will say, why the hell were we doing this? As CNN pointed out, the vast majority of all the pro-life groups right now, Live Action, pro-life feminists, all the rest of it, the vast majority of these institutions are run by women. So women themselves are, as our sister's talking about here, Amy's not the only one here. There's also Christine here, who's also a woman who is speaking up against this practice. So women are seeing through this stuff. And look, I understand it's a very, very sensitive topic for people. And like I said, I'm an earthen I'm an earthen vessel. I'm sure I don't do things perfectly, but once again, we have to think about what we're talking about here. And I wouldn't just say this for me, I'd say this for anybody. If you think that this is a practice that should discontinue, but you're quiet about it because you want people to like you, that's not the way. And as I said about betraying your friends, you have to look yourself in the mirror, right? You have to look yourself in the mirror. And it's the same thing with this thing. I have to look myself in the mirror. And all of us do. Love you too, Vargas. I appreciate you. Are you aware of the Susan B. Anthony list, a group well worth supporting? Yeah. Abstinence equals a mental disorder. Really, JLB? JLB? If a man is deployed overseas, then his wife will normally abstain from sex. Does that mean she has a mental disorder? If you want to use the government to force people to have unwanted children, you better propose a system that funds them having those children. Are you comfy with paying money for other people's kids? Yes, I am. But again, Ben, this is not the government forcing you to have unwanted children. This is the government forcing you to take personal responsibility for your actions. It's called personal responsibility, Ben. And we already have species of this when it comes to children. That's why we have child neglect laws. That's why most of us, when we see a woman with a baby bump and she's taking a big drag of a cigarette, most of us don't say, hey, it's her body. She can do with it what she will. You see a woman's taking a big long drag out of a crack pipe and she's 6 months pregnant. Most of us don't say, hey, it's her body. She can do with it what she will. I know a lot of women who are very regretful and depressed after having an abortion. And you know what the worst part about that is? Patch, you know what the worst part about women who are depressed and hurt after their abortion? They're not allowed to publicly talk about it. Because the shout your abortion people will turn on them. I've seen that happen. Look at the last 2 live streams. You'll see that happen. And the other side of it is pro-life people will pounce on them and try to make them, you know, whatever. They're not allowed to grieve. Those people are not allowed to grieve in public because of the culture that we've created. So they have to grieve privately. They have to private message people like me, strangers on the internet. Or they have to have private and secret support groups because their sisters keep telling them to shout their abortions and pretend that they're going hopping and skipping to and from the clinic, which is untrue. I had one friend by the name of A, and she came in for a job interview. She had a baby bump, and you know, she was kind of a vagrant. She appeared and disappeared. She came back, and her bump was gone. And like an idiot, I said, "What happened?" I said, "What happened to your baby, eh?" Like a moron. She said to me, Jay, the guy that she was with, she was about, gestational limits in Maine is about like up to 5.5 months, sorry. Jay, who she was with, broke up with her. He told her, I'm not supporting that kid, get rid of it, blah, 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 blah. Threatened her, all types of crazy ghetto shit. He then kicked her out in the dead of winter in Maine. She goes to her dad. Her dad says, sweetheart, you already have 2 kids. And I'm on state aid. And you can't keep a job. So, 3 kids is too much for me. So, do what you have. Make a decision. So, A was put in a situation where she had her car in the dead of Maine or her dad's apartment if she had that kid. So she is not shouting her abortion. The men in her life failed her. And no, it's not easy for a girl to just walk down to social services, etc., and be guaranteed help in that circumstance. It's not that easy. So this idea that women are just hopping and skipping and whatever to the clinic is a lie. And all she had was me, the horrible prick who hates women. All she had was me to talk to and cry about it. Because the rest of y'all were too busy shouting your abortion. Why are you always on this abortion wheel? Alex, I'm not on any abortion wheel. I was talking about every topic known to man. Somebody came in and brought up the topic. So I didn't bring up the topic. I was happy to talk about the Bucks game in a couple hours and all the rest of it. Technology will advance enough to where women can press a button that sends incoming sperm into another dimension. Yes, I believe that technology is called a condom. Although, condoms still operate in the third dimension, so I guess that doesn't work. Abortion is a wheel. Sorry for the Packers' loss. Is this an insomnia stream? Yes, it is an insomnia stream. I said about an hour and a half ago that we'd have 5 minutes. We could talk about angels and UFOs again. Yes, we could. Are the Bucks going to lose? I believe they will. I hope they don't, but I believe they will. I just don't see how Tommy's going to do it. I am not upset about the Packers losing. I am not upset about the Packers losing. I'm happy the Packers lost because I cannot stand when people have the audacity, the nerve, the unmitigated gall to say that what's his face, Aaron Rodgers is in any way, shape, or form anywhere close to the great Tom Brady. Yes, the Titans also deserve that L as well. I agree. A multiverse for semen. I don't feel for Aaron. Look, in the playoffs, you have got, I think Joe Burrow is the next great quarterback. I love his attitude. In the playoffs, you got to take chances. You have to take risks. You can't, Aaron Rodgers, his big claim to fame is his touchdown to interception ratio. It doesn't matter, man. Tom Brady, I think, is averaging like 1 interception per Super Bowl. You got to throw in the tight windows. Look, there was a 3rd and 11 that he had in the fourth quarter. Was about 6 minutes left. And he went for a 25-yarder on a double-covered guy because he doesn't want to, squeeze it into those tight windows. It is what it is. Brady fixed his environment. Are the angels saying do not fear because people saw their actual biblical appearance? Yeah, as I was saying, I do not think that we've evolved to perceive reality for what it is. And I think what happens is sometimes these beings are able to heighten our consciousness so that we see not only them, but we get a snapshot of actual reality for what it is. And I think that is terrifying. And I think that that's the phenomena that's happening. Packers lost because two bad plays. One was massively dumb. I think it was more bad coach calls and bad Aaron playing. Well, what two plays? I mean, there was the special teams plays, but Aaron only had 58 yards in the entire second half. 58 yards in the entire second half. Why would Aaron move to a new team? Aaron Rodgers had the best wide receiver in the league. Why would he go to another team? He had Bakhtiari, which was one of the top 10 left tackles in the league. He had a decent defense this time around. Why would he go to another team? On the Patriots? When Brady was on the Patriots? No, when Brady was on the Patriots, Julian Edelman was the MVP of the Rams game. Yeah, Brady switched for control. I agree. And then he promptly marched into Aaron Rodgers' stadium in the first year with no OTAs or anything like that and beat him. Won the Super Bowl. The guy is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. I don't think it's a good time for Brady for Aaron to retire. I mean, I think Aaron just needs to realize that he's never going to win a Super Bowl. And he can continue year after year to stat pad his touchdown to interception ratio. And I think that's going to be his claim to fame, and I think that's okay. JBL, I disagree with you. I think sports are massively fascinating and have a lot of theological and philosophical implications. There's more toxic place in an NFL fan page on Facebook. I agree with that. I completely agree with that. Strive for your own success, not your enemy's failure, though. Well, I agree with Ben. I mean, it's a zero-sum system. You know, especially the NFL, because it's only a one-game playoff. It's zero-sum, man. I mean, it's cutthroat, and that's why I love it, because nobody really dies and nobody gets, economically destroyed in the NFL. But it has high consequences, and I love it for that. I really, really do. What is your opinion about hell? Is it a place of literal fire and brimstone? Is it hell for a metaphor for emotional distress, or what? I think other people said this, but hell, I think, is self-inflicted for the most part and psychological. Let me show you a text that has always interested me and I think might interest you for the purposes of these discussions. First of all, number one, when God shows up to Abraham in Genesis, he shows up as this burning pot. Okay? And when God shows up to Moses in Exodus and the people, he shows up in this burning bush, right? And when he shows up to the children of Israel at Mount Sinai, he shows up as this flame of fire on the mountain of Sinai. So here you have this question that gets asked in the book of Isaiah. The sinners in Zion are afraid. Fearfulness have surprised the hypocrites. The munafiqeen in the Quran. Who among us, this is Isaiah, by the way. Now here's the question they ask. Who among us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Who among us shall dwell with everlasting burnings? Now, the traditional answer, or the instinctual answer, is probably going to be, oh, that's easy. the bad guys. You guys are going to be dwelling in the everlasting fire. Ha ha. That's what people would think the answer would be, but the answer is actually pretty interesting. The very next verse tells us who dwells in the everlasting fire. Answer: those who walk righteously and speak what is right, who reject gain from extortion and keep their hands from accepting bribes, who stop their ears against plots of murder, who shut their eyes against contemplating evil. So, the people who dwell in everlasting burnings, in the everlasting fire, in the Bible, in this passage, are not the wicked, but the righteous. It is the righteous who dwell in the everlasting burning. It's the righteous who dwell in everlasting fire in Isaiah 33. The reason for that is what I just told you earlier. God shows up to Abraham, he's a flame of fire. He shows up to Moses, he's a flame of fire. He shows up to the children of Israel, he's a flame of fire. God's presence is likened to a flame of fire. So currently what I believe is that those who don't want to be on the team, those who hate God, and the scripture says that we are by nature God haters. It says the mindset on the flesh is at enmity. Ekthra is the Greek word, and it literally means hatred. Hate God, okay? And God says, okay, I'm going to put you guys in a different dimension of the universe so that the people who love me and the people who hate me are in different dimensions of the universe, and never the two shall meet, right? I call this the divine quarantine theory, okay? So he puts everybody who doesn't want to be on the team in a different dimension of the universe because they hate God. But the issue is that God, because he is God, is omnipresent. So they're still experiencing the presence of God. But because they hate him, they're experiencing that fire of God's presence as something negative, whereas the righteous are experiencing the fire and the burning of God's presence as something positive. So both groups of people, individuals, are experiencing the same thing, but they're experiencing the same thing differently based on their psychological disposition and their spiritual and emotional disposition towards God. So being a hateful person is the punishment. As I've continued to say, sin is its own punishment. So that's what I believe about hell. Hell is another dimension in the universe where people who hate God, hate his righteous law, and hate his people get to run free in their own segment in the universe. And they get to create societies, cultures, music, etc., just like now. But as I've said, the universe that they will create and the cultures and the worlds that they will build will be some sort of cross between The Walking Dead and The Purge. All the while burning with self-hate and divine hate in ever-increasing measures for all eternity. So that's what I believe about hell. What's up, David? So since I hate with myself with a passion, am I a God hater in a way? Yes, Zarko, because you're creating the image and likeness of God. And Zarko, there's something about you that has never been done before and never will be repeated since. You reflect God in a way that nobody else will even be able. I couldn't even try to be like you and image God and represent God on the earth the way that you do. And there's something glorious and amazing about you. So because of life circumstances, horrible people, horrible societies, and what I call dark intelligences, if you get folded within yourself to hate yourself, you're also hating the image of God within you. So I would commend you that it is your duty to love yourself. because I enjoy you being here. So I enjoy you being here. So you ought to love yourself. I'm sure there's things about you that are absolutely amazing. And so, yeah. Yeah, dark intelligences, or what people would call demons. Do you think that anyone who commits suicide can go to heaven? I generally never answer that question in a forum like this. And I'm not going to now. So then I am a CME about Satan, and I think there's a layer added delusion to theistic Satanists, especially after acknowledgement of being part of creation. Oh, I agree. I think that theistic Satanists are deluded, for sure. Awake, O man, and recognize the dignity of your nature. Recollect you were made in the image of God, which although it was corrupted in Adam, yet is refashioned in Christ. Allahu Akbar. Who said that? Was that Chrysostom, or was that Augustine? What do you think music and culture tie into God? I think that music and culture tie into God because we were created in His image. And if you think about music for a second, if you think about evolution, I was watching something on the evolution of language the first time we had language. Think about how complex. You play guitar. One of us or a collection of us figured out, if we take these strings and we pull them at this certain point of tension, and if we do this at the same time, we can replicate these sounds that evoke these impossible to define things like emotions, and we can do them we can master this in some systemic way so that we can communicate the incommunicable parts of ourselves that cannot be communicated with language. God told our first parents, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it, right? And so industry, not just arts, but let's focus on arts because this is a metal channel. Industry, arts, poetry, all these things is human beings mastering and bringing together the seen and the unseen aspects of our nature and the world around us to make it work for us. And that's why I said that I have felt the presence of God in a Behemoth show, and I have felt God's pride in a Behemoth show. Jesus says in Proverbs 8 that his delight was in the sons of Adam. And interestingly enough, the sons of Cain started inventing music and culture and industry and cities and things of that nature. And I think the point in the narrative of Genesis is to say, yeah, these people are fucked up. They descended from a fucked up, horrible person, but holy shit, look at what human beings are capable of. And so that's how I think music ties in with God. It's unbelievable stuff. Pope Leo the Great. Okay, shout out to Pope Leo the Great. Vin, can I call myself a Christian if I disagree with Christ on many questions and don't condemn his crucifixion, but often agree with the church? That is, I'm not sure, because that's very general and I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. All right, Ben, later, buddy. Love you, man. Love you very much. How did people invent a piano organ? It's wow. I know. And then to find a way to get them all to work together. I was just looking at Hans Zimmer, Hans Zimmer, the movie guy, the guy that did Inception and all this. Like, it's amazing what human beings are capable of doing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, and look, the scientific reason why chords sound good is that the note sound waves have evenly divisible ratios. Right, but why do evenly divisible ratios sound good to us? We don't even understand why chocolate tastes like chocolate. It's unbelievable. Yes, I've heard Metabolic from Slipknot. For sure. Good song. Which song do you find darker, LD50 or Iowa? I just think Iowa. The reason I'd say Iowa is just they were purposely just trying to be as dark as they possibly could be. All right, 5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes. They're purposely being as dark as they possibly could be, but I think LD50 is probably, aside from Tool's Lateralis, which I think is probably the most important record of all time in metal. And I'm not like a giant, what do you call it, tool head or whatever, wrench head, is that what they call them? I just think Lateralis is the most ambitious conceptually album I've ever heard, and sonically just. But I think LD50 is in like that second tier right below Lateralis. And I'm a Korn fan, obviously, and Korn invented the genre and all the rest of it, but holy shit. Lateralis. Did you play Shadow Man as a kid? No, I've never even heard of Shadow Man. JLB, brother. It's called the hard problem of consciousness. None of us knows why food tastes the way it does, or why notes evoke the kinds of emotions that they do. And I've heard Asiatic scales and things of that nature. And even though they're different, they still evoke a certain kind of look. Du Hast is in a completely different language, but it does something. The harmonies and the things of that nature. We don't know what he's saying. We didn't know what he was saying initially, but it does something. So until we can understand the basics of the hard problem of consciousness, brother, there is no way. Yeah, right. Assumed. Exactly. And what I'm saying is, why don't we just let the mystery be the mystery, man? What's your thoughts on the story about Robert Johnston selling his soul to the devil in order to gain talents? The only person in the Bible who can give anybody talents is God. Literally. God has spoken of literally giving people talents in the script of the New Testament. Perkinos is going to smile at that. God's the only one that can give talents. Satan doesn't have the authority to give talents and barter and buy and sell people's souls. Do I believe that a person can intend to sell themselves to the devil in order to exchange it for talents? Yep. And do I believe that since the devil's a liar, that he will go along with this pretense? Yep. But he doesn't have the authority to buy, sell souls, or to give talents. The real answer as to why we enjoy music is because God enjoys music. He's a singer and his voice is often compared to a trumpet. I agree. Sadakt. I agree. Music may work like Pavlov's experiments. It is paired with other stimuli to give meaning. That's why couples have their song. They pair the song with thoughts of each other. Why do we want to have meaning in the first place? We're just a randomly gathered together collation of accidents and water and stardust, whence came this deep desire for meaning? See, none of these all these explanations do is create more questions. I would encourage you guys to abandon materialist physicalism. You don't have to be a Christian, by the way, to abandon materialist physicalism. You just have to recognize that, embrace the mystery of being. That's all. A blind person can hold a sphere in one hand, a cube in the other, and they can tell which is which. Holy smokes. That's true. That's very, very true. VIN, you getting too deep. Already have. Amen, Alan Thompson. Amen. Physicalism will never be able to explain the ghost in the machine. No, it will not. Do you agree in a world of taking risks? Yes, because anybody that starts a small business is taking a risk, and we're on business number 3, and we're absolutely taking risks. So I believe in it. I believe it's one of the most manly and womanish things we can do in the world. And I believe that it's also one of the most Christian things we can do in the world, because it demands a certain level of faith in God and faith in the gifts and talents that one has dispensed to us. So yes, take risks, but use the mind that God gave you. I'm borderline a secular mystic. Good. Keep going. Keep going. Sheikh Yardinga says, agree with you there, Vin. I think this whole Christian versus atheist dichotomy oversimplifies the kinds of ways you can look at the world. I agree. Let's meet in mysticism and see where it takes us. For sure. Take wise risks, my friends. Take wise risks, but take them. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. All right. I got to get out of here. I'm going to pray for you guys. Jesus, thank you so much for my friends. Thank you for Zarko. I pray you give peace to everybody, God, and I pray you give peace to all those who are upset and angry. God, I just pray for peace for all of my friends, the ones closest to my heart and the ones not so close to my heart, but are close to yours. God, I pray that you would banish self-hatred from my friends. I pray that you would banish all forms of self-doubt. God, I pray that you would banish thoughts of worthlessness. God, I pray that you would banish thoughts of suicide, God. God, please, whether they become Christians or not, for a moment, help them to see the value that you have and the dignity that you've given them in Adam and in Christ. And I cannot wait to see you. All right. I love you all. I'm out of here.